Hello, everyone, and welcome to State of the Realm, your weekly Final Fantasy XIV podcast. This week, we couldn't wait any longer. He demanded we do a show, and thus, this week is Spoilercast. So, if you haven't played through patch 5.4 yet, we'll be covering every possible story aspect, our speculations, and I'm sure Ethys will make us feel dumb, but that just comes with the territory. But I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Happy. Of course, joining me is Sly. How are you doing, Sly?
I am doing amazing. How you doing?
Amazing. I'm doing amazing too. I should say so myself. And I already mentioned him. You already knew he was going to be here. Ethys.
What's going on, baby?
Hi, everyone. Oh, not much. Just gotten all caught up. Just finally smashed out my my emerald stuff. Now that I've got all the story content out of the way. I was poking Mike like left, right, and center, just really wanting to get on with the spoiler cast because oh man, there's so much, just so much. I sent him messages in like 4 different places. I like jumped into chat while he was streaming, being like, "Boy,
you pulled a straight up Debo, like,
yeah,
we doing this pump."
Yeah, see, it's normally other people that have to do that to me. It's kind of empowering to be on the other side of it.
And that was when we lost him to insanity.
Oh, you lost me a long time ago. Long time ago. Did you know that my full-time job is to talk about the lore, like the fictional history of a fictional universe of a video game?
But it was made in a real place.
Was it? I don't even know that for sure.
All right.
I don't even know. I'm so far off the deep end. But that's what we're doing today. We're talking about 5.4 spoilers for everything. Have you guys done everything? We all caught up? Have you done the void quests? Have you both done the void quests?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Ooh. You're about to be spoiled.
I don't mind.
Have you done the new Nier chapter?
Yes.
There's a very okay. Did we? I don't think we even talked about it last time. You know, like I remember when we were doing Ayla Divya, I had like one Nier question because I felt like we needed to, and we were all just like, ugh.
We were pretty shocked you had a Nier question in there. We were pretty surprised you had a Nier question.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
All
Listen,
right.
I know all the Yoko Taro fanboys. You got to throw them a bone. You have to.
I'll throw him a bone with Drakengard, but that's it.
Okay. All right. So where do we want to start?
Well, I need to start by thanking our sponsors. Mm-hmm. See what I mean? This was what it was like with him asking for the show. I'm like, okay, I got this flow. We're gonna start with this, that, and he's just like, yeah. So what did you guys do? Where are we starting? What do you want to talk about? Hey, how's it going? What's up? Yeah, cool.
Just hype.
I don't care about your flow. I've never cared about your flow.
That's very true, giggity. Anyway. So anyway, so for the start of the show, we do have sponsors for the show. Of course, Steel Series has been sponsoring the show every week for years at this point. Thank you to them. Of course, the same 12% discount is there as it always is in the description of the video or in the chat with ! Steel Series. And they're still doing monthly giveaways. So on the YouTube channel, go under the video and check that out and enter because it's free stuff you could win when they're in stock because they've since Black Friday, it's been pretty nutty. You might have to go to Best Buy or something to get stuff for Steel Series for right now. Also, we do have another sponsor, but it's only going to be on the YouTube side of things. So those of you on Twitch, when you go to YouTube, there will be an extra segment right here because Romancing Saga Reuniverse, who's sponsored the show in the past, sponsored this show as well. So on YouTube, we're going to cut to a 30-second ad for that now. Hey everyone, just wanted to start the video by thanking our sponsor for Romancing Saga Reuniverse. It's a free-to-play mobile game based on the long-running RPG franchise Romancing Saga. It is a constantly evolving story, tons of characters to collect, and classic turn-based combat inspired by the games. It's also celebrating its half anniversary with massive bonuses, over 20,000 jewels just for logging in over the month of December. If you're interested, click the link in the description of the video, and thanks again to Square Enix and Romancing Saga Reuniverse for sponsoring this video. Now, on to the video itself. And we're back. Okay. On Twitch, you don't. That's all you get.
Wow.
You don't get it.
That was wild.
Yeah, that was great.
That was crazy.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I played it earlier. I mean, I like that game. It's their half anniversary. So their giveaway is galore for that game. And they also just released, I think it's Saga Frontier 1 through 3, I think, just came out. The Saga series was Final Fantasy Legends when it first came to the States, for anyone who doesn't know that. Final Fantasy Legends 1 through 3 were the first 3 Saga games.
Yep.
Yeah. So, now that was a nice ad. Oh, Twitch chat. But thank you to them for sponsoring this show as well. And of course, we have our patrons whose names are scrolling in the top right, who will get a longer shout out at the end of the show, because that's when you'll be able to have read all their names. You'll be reading them this whole time instead of listening to us. We know that. That's it. So we're going to start. So Sly and I...
Before we...
Oh, no, Sly,
Yeah,
yes.
before we really
what?
start. Before we start, we've given our initial first impression. So we haven't had you on for first impressions. So before we get to the meat of everything, you want to give us a quick first impressions at this of what you thought of the patch?
See, my first impressions of the patch was doing the commentary for the world race for the first 48 hours, and just like the sort of hectic nature of that, I feel like has colored my reaction to the rest of the patch. Does that make any sense? Like, I've been so excited about this patch. I've been so pumped for it, and I've been looking forward to it for like months and like gearing up for it, that I just had like such a blast. I just felt so like reinvigorated getting into the content. So I know a lot of people are like a little bit disappointed in the MSQ, and I get that, and I am not at all, probably for the same reasons that a lot of people are. A lot of people are kind of scratching their heads, being like, what are we doing back in Limsa? Who's this guy? And I was over there like, oh, yes, we're back in Limsa. Oh, my God. We're like resolving stuff that's been hanging since 1.0. This is so good. So I've been loving it. I haven't had a chance to get into Savage yet, but I'm going to be pugging that over the next couple of weeks, which I'm excited for. So, yeah, I think it's been a pretty good patch. Pretty good patch.
My favorite part of the world race was when you thought we got world first when we were just clearing normal mode that once.
I had like 10 seconds where I was like, wait, hold on a second.
That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
We got a kick out of that, so thank you. After many long hours
you're welcome.
of suffering.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so I want to do this, and I don't want to do this at the same time, but I want to get the easy one out of the way.
Okay.
So, Nier.
Have either of you played Drakengard?
Yes, I have played the original Drakengard.
Okay, can you... So, we get an echo flashback where one of the dwarves, I think Aenog, had like an accident in the mines or whatever, and then came out of one of those weird big egg things. Seed of destruction, that term was being thrown around a little bit.
It is a seed,
Can you tell us what the hell that thing is?
Well, you go into it, and then you come back out, and you're a fucking atrocious abomination of nothing like what you were before. You're not you anymore. You're basically replaced, in a sense.
Okay.
So, in other words, they're basically the arbiters of the destruction of everything that's going to come. So, I think we might know an approximation of who the final boss might be at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who would that be?
What's her face? Which one was it? I always forget. I always get their names mixed up. The dwarves.
The Furia?
Aenog. You think Aenog's going to be the final boss?
Aenog is it's going to be bad. It's going to be real bad.
Okay. See, I was under the impression that like it had already happened to her once, and that she was subsequently one of the machines or something like that. That she was like,
oh yeah, no, she's been like that the whole time, no doubt about that. But it's her missing is the more interesting aspect of it all, because those things and what they do to you are not good. It's very not good. So when we see Aenog again, it's not going to be on happy terms.
So where do they come from?
Drakengard.
Okay. but I mean,
Are you
like,
asking what timeline?
no, I mean, like, what is like the ontology of these things? Like, yeah, okay, you've told us what they do, but like, where do they come from? What made them? What put them there?
It's more information than you know, and more information than I'm willing to remember.
Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a good chance that Konog is also an abomination.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, it's not going to be good. It's going to be, and I don't. It's bad news coming for those two twins. It's not going to end well for either of them.
Okay, so they're just big, nasty Deus Ex Machinas that are gonna mess things up for us in a major way.
Yeah, good thing we'll resolve it in one patch, and then I can be rid of this fucking series.
That would be nice.
Of raids. Specifically of raids. Because I just don't want it. I just don't want
Now, that said, I feel like we should reiterate that, like, the raids themselves, they've been fun. You know, the music's been great, the fight design's been great. Like, they've been fun to play through, but, yeah, just the story is not... It's not grabbing me.
There's a good 20 minutes of this Nier story where it could have literally to do with anything that isn't Nier, and you're like, I like this in this patch. Like when the dwarves are like being blamed and he's trying to come up with apologies, and it's like he's going through this like emotional crisis and he doesn't know where his sister. I'm like, this is very Final Fantasy 14 right here. I feel for this guy. This is well done. This is well written. Then he goes to the fucking raid and stares at a goddamn ball, and it fucking all falls apart again, and you're just like, all right, I hope you know about Drakengard and all this shit.
All right, okay. Well, that's that. We've gotten that out of the way.
Hey, you know what though? Still cautiously optimistic for the last part. I've said it about every quest. I don't go in expecting it to be a disaster. It just has been every time so far. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we still don't know. That's actually a good point. We still don't know why it's called the Dark Apocalypse series. Yorha Dark Apocalypse. We don't know that. We don't know why that's... Unless it's just... It sounds cool, which may very well be the actual answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I got nothing. The only Dark Apocalypse that we know of in 14 is, you know... Well, one might be happening in the MSQ pretty soon.
Yeah.
Heck, maybe it'll tie into that somehow.
Don't say that.
Well,
I'm gonna need you to not say
maybe.
that.
Yeah. Can we move on from Yorha?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's leave the
Good.
MSQ for last, because that I think is the chunkiest.
Why?
I think it's the chunkiest thing to talk about.
It is pretty chunky.
It is quite chunky. Whereas I think Warlet and Eden are bite-sized enough to...
No, Eden is not bite-sized.
No, Eden not so much. Warlet definitely is, though. Warlet's definitely bite-sized enough, because...
Warlet's got some meat on it. A little bit of meat.
So here's the thing. Warlet's been incredibly consistent, if not anything else, in the pace of its storytelling. It pretty much moves the story forward exactly the amount you expect, and then pushes what you need to know a little bit further, just enough to make you want the next one, without being like backloaded on cutscenes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's talk about Warlet then.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I'm loving Warlet. It's
same.
It's so wholesome and sad, but also badass at the same time.
Wholesome is the first word
Listen,
you use for fucking Warlet?
Not for Valens, but for the story of the actual, you know, the children, the Aura, and the way they feel about this whole thing. Not Valens.
Still?
Not Valens. He's the not wholesome part.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless it's whole milk.
Wholesome.
That's the only way
Yeah,
he's
I don't know
wholesome.
if I would use the word wholesome for that, though.
For the kids, I would, especially for the post Warlet cutscenes that we got when you go back to Turncliffe. All of that, it's very relatable almost to a sense with the way the children are like handled in a sense in terms of being out of place and feeling abandoned and still wanting to do good but having to do bad to do good kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I just like how all of the children have been fleshed out so far, and their ordeal specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not like super attached to the children. I still, I don't know. They feel a little bit like shoehorned to me.
I mean,
but,
we kind of have to be attached to Allie, though. I mean, she's the only one left. She's about to be the only one left.
Yeah. No, I get that. I just really wish, really wish in this quest line that Livia and Rattatan had still been alive. You know?
We get a moment with one of them, sort of.
Yeah, we get a moment with one of them. But, you know, and I want it to be more about Gaius and Cid and their relationship, and maybe, you know, Nero as well. I think it's really interesting they tied Valens into that issue, which we'll come to. But yeah, I don't mind the Alra. I just
they're not the most interesting component of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, well, they're adopted.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are indeed adopted. This is true.
Yes. That's very good.
Werla kind of gets off the ground running. It pretty much throws you immediately into the core thing that you need here, because they're like, well, I've heard about this emerald weapon. It can be in one of two places, and of course it's the place we go, and now you're fighting it.
Yeah.
One thing about the emerald weapon. Did nobody notice that the emerald weapon kind of looks like Gaius's helmet?
I kind of like.
Did you notice that the ruby weapon looks exactly like Nail's helmet?
And then Sapphire's looks like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I can't really see his head. His everything's like so chunky that I couldn't really make out a helmet. It was like really hard to make out.
It's one of those things that like you don't see it until you do, and then when you do, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. Like I didn't see
suddenly it's all you see.
Anything that looked like in all the art leading up to it, I never once was like, yeah, his head looks like Gaius's helmet. It's just he's just like chunked around the whole thing that I couldn't really make it out. So after the fact though, yeah. Because then you start looking and you're like, I remember the other two. Where? I think about Emerald Weapon is that he's not emerald. He's gold.
Super Saiyan.
Yeah, which brings up a lot of people, may not know this, but a lot of people still don't know why Golden Gaius is a thing. Period. But from back in Praetorium, because the lore was kind of shoehorned into a mount, the golden Magitech armor mount. Where
that's right.
Yeah, they use ceruleum to boost magic resistance, basically, and it has that effect on their armor. So that's a big reason why that happens, and I thought that it was fun to dig that up again.
Yeah, it's highly, as you say, highly like magic resistant, and also very highly like ethereally conductive. So a lot of those sort of like Magitech attacks, this kind of like simulated magic that the Garlean purebloods have to use, it's just a lot easier and more efficient to channel it like in that state. I assume that the offshoot is that it also is incredibly like resource intensive and like power intensive to be able to sustain that state. But I think that was like a really cool little throwback. There were quite a few references in the fight as well that like Gaius was noticing that they were using like his tactics. So Gaius, this is something that is kind of missed a little bit in the MSQ as well. That Gaius is renowned in Garlemald for being a tactical genius. They study all of his plays and all of his historical campaigns and stuff at the Royal Magitech Academy. He's incredibly influential and like a real folk hero to boot. He's almost like this sort of Alexander the Great type figure in a way. I mean, he took Alamigo basically without firing a shot. But when you're in that like simulated world in phase 2, he's using the hands to like simulate these different like tactical formations and stuff that Gaius was actually using in that battle, which is really interesting, and plays in, I think, a lot more in the extreme mode, but I think that's really cool. Yeah.
They're really good at little details like this. These are the kind of things that if you just play the fight and you don't care about the story or anything, it's one thing. You wonder what the hell? Like, why does seventh weapon have hands? Why can't Gaius form a full row of soldiers? What a fucking idiot. And and then you realize they have to make it winnable, and then, you know, all of a sudden it ties into the lore of the character.
It's because Gaius is in the middle as well, and he needs somewhere to stand.
In normal mode, he dodges. He actually just dodges them one by one.
Yeah, he dodges it. Yeah.
And in extreme, he's like, I'm out. Good luck.
Yeah. But I like that. I really like that. The idea of like, I guess in the way of kind of constructing a fight diegetically in Final Fantasy XIV, being like, all right, I'm going to get all my ads that do this attack that I've memorized and I know how to execute the mechanics, but the other dudes in here with me that I want to kill, they don't know how to execute it. So they're going to die and I'm going to be good. I love that. I think that's really, really neat, like diegetic storytelling.
Yeah, and then in extreme, when you have all three components, you have the armor, you have the carpet bombers, and you have the soldiers all firing. That's strategically, while it may not be that bad to execute for us, you know, we're the warrior of light, you know.
Yeah.
In an actual battle, someone saw that on three sides and be like, guess I'll just die.
Bye.
That's it. Oh, man. How have your extreme farms, how much extreme have you guys done as a backing out of the story aspect?
Oh, I've been farming a lot. I've been in a lot of farm parties, if you know what I mean.
Sly?
I'm fucking done. I've never seen that shit again.
Mr. Mount Fuck here.
Oh, you already got the mount.
You got like the third fucking kill.
Fourth.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fourth kill. And then I had to go 10 times to get the weapon. So, yeah,
I'm sorry for your fucking...
Oh, no.
Oh, no. I'm at fucking 80 and my monk fists haven't dropped, Sly.
80 and you haven't... No.
So here's the thing. For the first 45, I went Scholar. They dropped 3 times. I didn't win them. So I went Monk, and they haven't dropped since.
Yep. Oh, jeez. That's tragic.
So I might need 109 of these by the time all's said and done. So.
Oh, no.
Oh, fuck you. In your fucking hurricane. My fucking, like, Party Finder experience is a fucking hurricane.
That's everybody's PF experience.
Yeah, but I'm doing it more. So it's like the hurricane that never ends.
Farm party. I
have 80 tokens, Sly. 80.
Well, that's pretty efficient. Well done.
Anyway, back to the story of Warlock, I suppose.
Yeah, so we destroy it.
Yep. He is way too... I mean, I get why he's so happy about oversouling in this, but it's got to be weird becoming your dad. That's got to be a weird moment, really.
He is, like, really happy about it, isn't he?
Cats in the cradle shit right here.
Yeah.
I gotta say, you know, now that you think about it, you can imagine like drawing straws for which weapon you were going to have to pilot, and the one that got nailed is just like, oh no, oh come on, oh jeez.
So you really
and then you get Gaius, and
yeah,
and then you get Gaius, and you're like, yes.
Who's your daddy? Oh man, and it's another a big thing. Also, you can see how much Oversoul has kind of improved from the first experience, with what happens with Ruby Weapon versus what happens with Emerald. Emerald looks like a much more complete Oversoul in a sense. Gaius basically he takes over, but he's not an abomination. He's an etherically charged presence,
right?
That basically coexists with his weapon, which probably plays well into Gaius's, like you said, his whole strategy aspects. Because if you had like a nail abomination, like if Gaius was like oozing out of Emerald, probably wouldn't be as sound of mind, I imagine.
No.
Yeah, and Sapphire was incomplete. Sapphire barely. I mean, it was better, but it was still not all the way there. I wonder if it's also part of just wanting the Oversoul more, because I feel like the last two Aura were more like dedicated to the idea and like less surprised by what was happening. Whereas what's her face began with an M.
Melisandre.
Yeah.
She was like
she's been resistant to it.
Yeah, she was very resistant to it. So I'm assuming that has some sort of effect on the actual pilot or on the end result at the very least.
We also discovered
Recon, though.
Yeah, I don't know about Recon.
Yeah, Recon,
it's an interesting idea though.
I feel like, I don't feel like Recon was 100% with the plan, as is Rex and what's his face now.
Oh no, what's his face now is definitely not on board for the plan after the beating he took. He was on board for it before that. I don't know how he's feeling about it now.
after they burned out the bad.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. He may not be as no. Especially when he finds out who, well, he probably already knows, but, you know, who he's going to become.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting. You know, with Recon and Melisandre, we didn't know that the Oversoul, like, destroying them was by design.
Yeah.
We thought that it was, like, incomplete or you know, like a weird sort of unforeseen side effect. But it turns out that, like, they knew going in, all knew. Yeah.
Except for
that
Allie.
it was going to kill them.
Except for Allie. She found out right before we showed up for Emerald.
Summer child.
Yeah, I mean, we were wondering why she went into Valen's room, and it had to have been to learn about Oversoul at this point, because she then comes to this with this information here.
Yeah. So we learn after defeating Emerald that the 14th Legion actually has the majority of them in Eorzea have finally been recalled and like let back into Garlemald. Whereas basically at the beginning of 2.0, when Solus died, all of the legions were recalled to sort of sort out this, you know, war of succession. Gaius refused and basically was excommunicated in a way. He was basically AWOL, and the whole 14th Legion was AWOL, and then after Praetorium, they were not welcome back. They were all considered traitors. They were stuck in Eorzea. They were cut off from Imperial supply lines, and they were either like resorting to banditry, or they were doing jobs for Elidibus, like smuggling crystals and stuff around. They were doing a lot of that. But now we know that they've been allowed back, and most of the Imperials that are now in Eorzea are part of the newly reformed 7th Legion. But they were recalled from Castrum Marinum, basically anticipating what was going to happen. And the other Aura kids basically put Ali in the brig, knowing that we were going to find her and that she was going to be safe and out of Valen's reach as I guess a prisoner of war.
Or whatever you want to call what he does.
Yeah.
Prisoner of war almost sounds too tame.
No, I mean now she's a prisoner.
Oh, yeah, now she's a prisoner of war. Yeah.
Yeah. And they knew that she was going to be safe as a prisoner of war, as opposed to going back to him. Which is pretty rough.
To say the least. Yeah, they're... It's just the plan for the kids is weird. The plan is to be a part of the project for two reasons. One, they don't want other people to just be, you know, sacrificed essentially to this. Right. If they don't do it, someone takes their place. But they also have the idea that they're going to have the power to turn on Valens, but their consciousness is not theirs anymore. So that I don't understand, in a sense.
Yeah.
Unless Alphonse finds some way or just breaks away his consciousness during Oversoul and something happens.
I don't think if there's an Oversoul, you will not break it as the one he is about to be subjected to.
It is a shit plan. Maybe they're hoping that they can like improve the weapons enough that they don't have to use Oversoul. perhaps that's their thinking, that they can.
But why would they think? Well, they would think that because they don't know about Valen's testing, like continuously testing Oversoul. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Oh, yeah.
But basically, so we've kind of had a harder confirmation now that most of the Imperial legions are operating independently of one another. That there is no like oversight, no kind of leadership really operating anywhere. Yeah. So in the same way that Noah is kind of doing his own thing and trying to make his own little kingdom, Valens is also concentrating this weapons project, presumably so that he can use the weapons to take over Garlemald, put himself on the throne. That's what the orphans are suspecting. And they're like, well, hey, if he thinks he can do that, then surely we can, we're the pilots, right? He can't make us, like once we're in the seat, we can, turn and shoot him and then go and, destroy the Empire from within and specifically free whirl it. But it's like, dude, we're already doing that. Like, we basically did that with a G Warrior in like 10 minutes, I think they're stupid, but I think they're supposed to be stupid. I think that's kind of the point, right? Is that they're really naive and idealistic because they're supposed to be like Gaius and like Gaius's idea of using the ultimate weapon kind of for like similar means. They're supposed to reflect that.
Here's the thing with the kids, and this is like, one, I think we can I think we have to kind of blame Gaius for why we kind of feel a little bit meh about his kids. Like he's a fucked up daddy a little bit, and he's trying to come back and be a good daddy, and it's just not working. It's like the timing's like really fucking off.
That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, the timing's off.
The timing's like really fucking off. You pick up really good time to be a fucking good dad, guys.
Yeah, too little, too late, mate. Yeah.
So like it, nothing against the kids, like everything against Gaius in this regard. Like, you just don't like your kids.
Well, that's what the story is about, right? It's Gaius trying to redeem himself. It's the kids following in his footsteps and trying to hold on to these ideals that he no longer has. And Valens, on the other hand, also being obsessed with Gaius and trying to like model himself after Gaius. I mean, as we learned, Valens was originally in the 14th Imperial Legion. He worked for Nero. He worked under Nero. He was one of Nero's engineers. Gaius didn't even know who he was. Like, Gaius is like, I've never seen or heard of this guy in my life. Who is this dude? And Ali's like, yeah, he was in the 14th Legion and he was working for Nero. And Gaius is like, yeah, that creepy dude. That creepy Hojo ass motherfucker.
Really likes calcium.
Yeah. This reminds me of the Lion interview. Like, wait, who? Who do you? Oh, yeah. Keep up that work.
It reminds me of Thanos being like, I don't even know who you are. That's Gaius.
That's exactly where I went with it.
Yeah. So, Gaius is responsible for that as well. The reason that Valens is like is taking these like non-Garlean orphans under his wing is because he saw like Gaius doing that, and he saw the way that they like worshipped Gaius, the way he like instilled these sort of like leadership qualities that he had, that Valens is clearly like very, very envious of, that he doesn't have, and he's got it all like twisted and is literally torturing these kids because he doesn't have the charisma to kind of make them love him in the same way that they loved Gaius.
Charisma's, certainly something he's lacking. Yeah.
And then we come to find out Livia was just as kind of fucked up against Gaius's kids too.
This is a retcon. This is 100% a retcon. Gaius, ARR Gaius 2.0 Gaius was creepy as fuck towards Livia. There was literally the line, meet me in my quarters in 1 hour from Gaius, right? And us knowing that she was already basically his adopted daughter, and she was obsessed with him, and that it seemed like she'd been basically groomed. And then now they're trying to like turn it the other way around and be like, no, Olivia was batshit crazy and was in love with him, wouldn't let anyone else near him. And I'm like, all right, I can accept that because I like Gaius. But this is what's happened. Like people.
No. Wait, but weren't we like under the impression in 2.0 that Livia was still batshit about Gaius too?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. She was obsessed with him. Yeah, but it seemed like she was obsessed with him because he had groomed her, right? Whereas now,
I just think he slung some good dick. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's just the thing, right? You know, it's his adopted daughter, and if he's slinging some good dick,
that's not the name for his penis. The thing is not the
that's
name.
no bueno. That's no bueno, right? That's no good. All right. Oh man, now you know Airsbane isn't only the name of his sword, right?
Man, that means being shot by Airsbane is much different.
But seriously, this is very obviously a case of
you can't say that and then say but seriously. You know that, right? That doesn't
listen.
Work. You can't just skirt all responsibility for that.
Listen.
You know that, right?
Listen. After Rome Reborn, I promise you that they had not decided whether or not they were going to bring Gaius back yet. Okay. The character that Gaius has become.
You were sure.
I was sure because I knew that if I said it loud enough, it would happen because that's how this game works, right? If I have a tantrum and say that I want this character to come back and it picks up enough traction, then we get what we want. We get what we ask for. Because Yoshida spoils us. So that's what I was banking on. But the character that Gaius is now is a very different character to what he was. Right. In ARR, and that's not just because of the way that he's advanced, but they've also had to like, you know, pedal it back a little bit and be like, oh, actually, he wasn't this creepy evil dude. He was just, you know, idealistic and, you know, misunderstood and, you know, hubristic and all that. And he was all of those things as well. But yeah, we can kind of see the threads there a little bit. But yeah, we learned about that with Olivia, and we also saw Retartan as well, briefly.
Wait. So
flashback
to confirm, Retartan was the Billy Ray Cyrus Rogadin, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, 100%. And what else have we got here? I kind of got off track with Airsbane a little bit. I kind of derailed myself.
I want to see you get back on this train.
No, what else happens in Whirlit? What else we got?
Burn out the bad, which everyone wants to do to us right now after that conversation.
Yeah.
Right, of course. Yeah. Valens is Hojo. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's Lord Farquaad.
Yeah, he's definitely Lord Farquaad. But he's also, He's ugly.
Yeah.
He's one hideous looking motherfucker.
He's definitely making some Hildebrand faces. And
I wasn't expecting him to look like that, you know. After the last scene we got of him like shirtless and muscly and sweating, there were a lot of people that were like, okay. And I cannot imagine how those people in particular must have felt when he turned around.
And he's like middle-aged and shit.
He's Lord Farquaad, but tall.
Yeah.
People aren't calling him Lord Farquaad because of what he does. It's because he looks like Lord Farquaad.
He's got the same haircut. Yeah. I like him as a villain. I really like him.
Remember, guys, if you want really someone dead as a villain, it usually means you like them as a villain.
I mean, he is a villain. I admit in terms of media, there are way better, well-written villains, but he's a decent villain.
Well, to me, and I've been saying this all along, it seems like they're trying to set him up as the other side of the coin to Gaius. And he's supposed to show Gaius everything like ugly and monstrous about who he was as a legatus, and this position that he was in, and it's like, yeah, guys had the the charisma and all that, but this is the other side of it, the really creepy, unsettling, monstrous side to that role is Valens. And I'm really excited to see them have some confrontation. I really think Gaius has got to be the one that kills Valens.
No, it's going to be
100%.
Allie. You're gonna want it to be Gaius, but it's gonna be Allie.
You really think it's gonna be Allie? There's a small percentage of me that, well, no, he's not even gonna.
I mean, Allie is already plotting to completely go against everything that we set up. We're like, yeah, just hang low, relax, and she's like, fuck that. She's gonna steal the G Warrior and head the fuck out. Is what she's gonna do.
She's refused to tell us where the diamond weapon is.
But she knows.
She knows.
She definitely knows. Yeah.
She 100% knows. Yeah.
She's 100% stealing the G Warrior and going on her own. I have no doubt about that.
The perfect G Warrior.
Yeah.
Because we now have a new engineer for G Warrior, so it'll be perfect, I think, by the time we get to Diamond.
That's right. We do have another engineer in Whirlit who is also working for Nero on the ultimate weapon. Yeah, it's interesting. And the what's the Hure in Gaius's party? What's her name again? Let me see if I can find it.
I just reminded myself this morning.
I'm so Severa.
Yeah. I can only remember that.
Yeah.
I've been so focused on Vodalin and just having another Duskwide boy and how exciting that is that I kind of overlooked Severa as well. So Severa was also part of the 12th Legion, and she was at Alamigo when we took Alamigo back. So she had not been with Gaius for very long. It was only a couple of patches later that we came across Gaius in the burn as Alphino. It seems like she hadn't been with him for much longer. But she was trying to get back to Whirlit when she got there. We already learned about the plague that had hit Whirlit and how they hadn't allowed any of the non-Garleans to be treated. So her mother had died, and then basically she, went wandering and ended up coming across Gaius and joining him.
Yeah, they finally give us that little bit of backstory. I'm curious to see where these two go after everything's said and done, because one of them's sticking around, and it already seems like...
Just to see Gaius dead.
Yeah, and it already seems like, what's Vodalin? I can never pronounce his name, because Vodalin.
Yeah.
It seems like he's already rethinking his deal in a sense.
Of course. Yeah.
Which was an obvious.
I really don't think he is. He reconfirmed it though in the story in the storyline. He was like, "Yeah, I'm still sticking around just to see. Like, is he gonna back out of his deal?"
I feel like he just wants Gaius to be willing to go through with the deal, and then I don't think he's gonna kill him. I think he just wants to see, because if Gaius refuses, he'll probably want to kill him. And then if Gaius agrees, he probably won't. He's probably just a test of character at this point, more than anything else.
I think Gaius is 100% into it, though. Gaius wants nothing more than to have a noble sacrifice.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's what gets Gaius out of this quest line alive, is simply because he's 100% committed. He's going to be
spread. Yeah. The really interesting thing about Severa for me is she has a third eye, and we've noticed this before, but it's like a dark sort of blue, almost black. And we'd only ever seen the white one, the one that all the other Garleans had. And we'd also been told that only Garlean purebloods have the vestigial eye. And we find out now that she basically has the same blood as Arenvold's, where she had a Hure mother and a Garlean pureblood father, right? And where Arenvold never grew the third eye, but his mother was so afraid that he was going to that she kept mutilating him. She has grown it, but it's different. And that's really interesting. I wonder if we'll come across,
That means it's a recessive gene, essentially.
Yeah, it means it's a recessive gene. But as a result, it means that basically the Hure looked at her as a Garlean, and the Garleans looked at her as a, Garlean Hyur.
Yeah.
So she ended up in a similar situation to Fordola, Fordola's parents being collaborators, where she was hated by the Garleans and hated by the Alamegans. It's kind of the same thing, but for a slightly different reason.
Yeah.
So, that makes her quite an interesting character to me.
Does that mean she's going to get thrown aside into a primal killing squad and never be seen again?
Probably.
Unless you do the Summoner 80 quest or read text on the Lodestone.
We're going to have to talk about those primal killing squads when we get to the MSQ.
Oh, yeah, we are.
They have not been doing their job.
We are going to see Fordola again very soon. I think that's...
I hope so.
I think that's a guarantee at this point.
We're going to need them.
Yeah. So...
We're going to need all hands on deck.
Yeah. With Whirlit, though... No, there is still one thing. We get our... On top of the Burnout the Bad and his punishment and forcing the Oversoul of the Diamond Weapon, we do get to see exactly how they're going about testing the Oversoul. Mm-hmm. And, that's fucked up.
He's a fucking dick, man.
They're essentially promising people freedom or protection. Thanks, babe.
Mm-hmm. This is your gift.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh.
She got me Nika coffee grain whiskey. There you
Ooh.
go.
Hey!
Slide's happy about that. There you go.
Oh, man.
There you go.
Sly,
I'm jealous.
Sly had been recommending it to me, too.
Sly, it's me.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let's do a little taste test at 1 in the afternoon.
Good shit. And the cube? Oh.
And the cube.
Hand claps.
This is the Crown Royal glasses that came with the bottle that I ordered.
I've been using a Sailor Jerry's glass.
It's pretty good. I like it. Okay. Derailing. No, we're good. We're good.
We're good.
So
we have alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. At 1 in the afternoon. So it's perfect for me. So that's fucked up. The way they're testing Oversoul. We also get an idea of how they're fine-tuning Oversoul to be obedient. Again, the kid's plan not really coming to fruition, because the Oversoul for the Diamond Weapon is Xenos, which we kind of saw coming. We Xenos and Gaius were two big ones on our to watch list for potential Oversouls, but we ruled out Xenos because we decided it would be a bad idea. Valens has not decided that would be a bad idea yet, and he is going to find out very soon it's a bad idea.
I mean, is he not paying attention to what's going on in the capital? Everyone's...
That might be
I know they've been
him.
trying to... I know they've been trying to pin the murder of Varys on Gaius. Yeah. But
they also know.
They also know, exactly. They know. I don't know how he thinks he's going to get an obedient Xenos. Yes, Sly?
Quick question. Are we absolutely 100% sure that Diamond is the final weapon?
Yes.
I mean,
it's his crown. They constantly talk about it being his ultimate creation, and how it's his crown jewel amongst the experiment, and how it's the thing he needs. He's put all his cards into this. At least under Valens, it's the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was really thinking in the back of my head that there would be a Varys Oversoul.
No, because we just fought Varys this expansion. We fought him already.
I mean, we fought him, but
Varys,
I was under the impression
he also isn't really as renowned for either of the things that Emerald or Diamond are. Gaius is the master strategist, and Xenos is the absolute maniac in terms of power.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and see, that's what and they're bringing it up in chat, which is what I was thinking. Diamond,
nobody gives a fuck about Jade Weapon.
Ultimate.
It's not. It's
no. Ultimate.
Who cares?
Not Ultima. Ultimate.
I know that.
Okay.
Nobody cares though.
All right. Fine. I was just throwing something out there that nobody really talked about, because we're thinking that Diamond is the end all be all, but
Look, it might be that in future expansions we'll get another weapon that's kind of derivative of these, in the same way that these are derivative of of Ultima. Who knows? But I think for this story, like it's gonna cap with Diamond.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you telling me that if you had to fight Xenos, Gaius, and Nail all at the same time, that's not Ultimate? If they fucking digivolve and like transform and shit into one another, and you've got all three of them at the same time, all in one machine, that's not Ultimate?
I think you just pitched an Ultimate. There you go.
I sure did. They're gonna DNA digivolve together. There you go.
God.
Like, that's a fucking frightening prospect if you think about it, if they were able to have multiple Oversouls at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could eat other Oversouls in the same way that it can eat other primals, like it
makes perfect
ontologically
sense.
a similar thing.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. Be an interesting concept. I just couldn't help but think with the Xenos thing and like not being able to control a Xenos Oversoul, and just harken back to Elidibus, summoning that simulacrum of Xenos for us to fight and being like, that's weird. I have no control over that. It's just really like another point of reference for Xenos' soul being something just way, way beyond anyone's understanding.
Not to mention, he instantly goes to his obsession with the Warrior. Like, as soon as the Oversoul is finished, his obsession with the Warrior of Light is the first thing that comes through of his Oversoul.
Yeah, God, it's creepy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's troubling. We're gonna have to make sure we absolutely burn that facility to the ground, because if we end up beating the Xenos and there's still somewhere some like Xenos Orosite hanging out that's gonna come back in like 7.5 and be like, by the way, no, please.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's happened, because Xenos is still a big mystery at this point regarding his lifelong, apparently, visions of the end of days. So, because normally that would mean you would awaken to the echo and everything, but he didn't. His was artificial. So.
Well, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive.
Well, they're not, but not everyone who sees it awakens, as we learned on the first. But
yeah,
he seems like one who may have, you'd be surprised that he gets the vision in the first place. You know what I mean? So, but Wurlit's got a lot of chapters. It's got one chapter to unfold, but it's got a lot of plot lines to unfold between Ali, Valens, and I don't know that you can get all that done. It's kind of like with Bosnia, like it feels like there's no way that we're done with Gabranth by the time that's all done. Like there's almost I don't see it possibly happening. But this is kind of the same. I don't think Diamond Weapon going away automatically means Valens is done. But I think they're going to try to push that. They're going to push that.
I think it does. I think it does, but like it doesn't mean the end of the weapon project.
As we learned with Black Rose, it's never the end, because we were like, oh yeah, Gaius destroyed all that. And they're like, no, we're fucking making more.
No.
Listen.
So yeah, I think we'll see, like after Diamond, we'll still continue to see the weapon project.
I think that yes, there will still be, some like vestiges, some threads of the weapon project, but I also think that they're trying to wrap up Legatus like they're trying to wrap up Ascians at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the next conversation we'll be getting into momentarily.
Yeah.
With Wurlit, I'm super excited to see the final chapter of that. We'll have that.
Yeah,
I'm predicting April will probably be our 5.5 if I had to take a shot in the dark from now. And it's not a shot in the dark. I just added 16, 17 weeks to the fucking schedule we're on right now. So that's high anticipation for me, especially because Ultimate would be 2 weeks delayed. So we get to do that. Like I get to just fucking dive into Wurlit immediately. Something I actually don't think we're done with, that is our next topic, is Eden. And that was, I was really satisfied. So I was talking about this with everyone the other day. With all of our raid stories, they've all been kind of backloaded. Coil, the very first Coil is very light. It just kind of teases you with, the scale of everything. And you see Louis Swan nail, but you don't really learn anything. It's setting up precedent. The second one takes you on a fucking journey at the very end with who you fight and who shows up. And then the finale is above all in terms of scale and work put into it. It's also our only fully, not fully, but mostly voice acted raid tier of all time for 8-man raids. Other than boss dialogue, which this tier goes ham on, by the way. Alexander's all backloaded. None of it makes sense until the very end. And Omega has no point until the very end. So...
yeah, all right. I'll let you have that.
Once you know the end of Alexander, all of it pulls together. Like, the beginning isn't like any... It gets better because of the end. But it's all at once. But this one has been like this pretty much the whole time, with like spikes of like major information and like new understandings and experiments and shit. Yeah. And that has ended with what I find an overall satisfactory raid story. I won't rave or go nuts about it, but I'm very happy with it.
Okay. All right. What about you, Sly? Are you satisfied with it?
I mean, it definitely threw me for a loop. But yeah, I'm satisfied. I'm content.
Okay. Can we do this in like
sequential
historical
order?
Kind of sequential order?
You mean like or how we get to this plot line versus how it happens? Okay. So in other words, you want to start 100 years ago. You want to start 100 years ago, pretty much. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you kick this off so we can follow your lead. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, 100 years ago, Arenvold and crew are, resolving all these issues, becoming the warriors of... Sorry, Arenvold. I said Arenvold. Ardbert and crew are fighting ultimately against two Ascians, Mitron and Logrif. Okay? And obviously the Shadowkeeper. And we saw a recreation of that fight, and that was pretty cool. And we'll come to that.
So fucking glad we saw that. Thank God.
Me too. I was really happy to see that. But we'll come to that.
Okay.
Now, Mitron and Logrif, in order to destroy Ardbert, were forced to do the fusion dance in the same way that Lahabre and Igeom did in Heaven's Ward. And basically, in classic Warrior of Light fashion, Ardbert hit him with a Blade of Light. And it had some unforeseen side effects, let's say. They obviously didn't use a White Auracite or anything like that. But basically, it killed Logrif outright. She was dead. Her soul went back to the live stream. It wasn't kind of, destroyed, but she died. And Mitron, his body was filled with so much light ether, so much like umbrally charged, like light aspected ether from the Blade of Light, that he became a Sin Eater.
The first Sin Eater.
The first Sin Eater.
Very first.
So in the same way as basically what Emmett Selk wanted to do to us, where we got pumped full of so much ether that we turned into, a light warden that was going to like allow him to cause the flood of light, get that rolling again. Basically, Ardbert accidentally did that to Mitron. Whatever happened exactly, we know from other like dialogue later on in this quest that basically the first has always been like dangerously close to light. That's something basically what happened with the Void when they tipped the scales there.
Yeah, that one was dangerously close to dark. This one was dangerously close to light.
Yeah. The first was like the other end of the scale, right? So it was already like massively over aspected to light. So something between the Ascian Prime form that they'd taken, just this whole like combination of these effects meant that rather than being destroyed, Mitron transformed into this giant monstrous Sin Eater and just immediately like started causing the flood of light. So Ardbert and crew, they got dragged over to Eorzea by Elidibus, and then very soon after, Minfilia jumped back to the first and stopped the flood of light. What she was actually doing was she was stopping Mitron, which had become Eden, and slapping it hard enough that it was put into stasis, was shut down, like whatever you want to call it. And the last 100 years, Mitron has been kind of stuck there, like barely conscious, just barely like hanging on to his sense of self, that he's been able to like whisper out. And nearly 100 years later, Logrif is reborn into another body, which we know of as Gaia, right? And Mitron, particularly once we start reversing the flood of light, once we start bringing the night back and stop, basically start bringing the darkness back, stop the first from being so massively, overwhelmingly aspected towards the light, Mitron's voice gets a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger. He becomes a little bit more conscious, a little bit more cognizant. He can whisper a little bit louder in Gaius's ear until it gets to the point where he's actually able to like influence her and take control of her. And when we go and activate Eden, and we realize that we can use it as this kind of terraforming device to like draw the ether out of the land and repolarize it and put it back in, what we're actually doing is fixing Mitron's body, right? We're fixing his ether. And a little bit of it is getting back into the land, but mostly it's just like going to him. And then Mitron is able to exercise enough control over Gaia that he basically takes control of her and sends her to capture Gaia, right?
Yeah. What's actually interesting for me about this is the exact moment where you can kind of tell Mitron could actually reach out is as soon as we beat Eden Prime.
Yeah.
As soon as we literally overcome that thing that took over his consciousness, his mind branched out, and then immediately Voidwalker. That's it. Like it's the return there is pretty good. It brings a lot more emphasis on that first encounter, which everyone was so surprised about. We're fighting Eden Prime first. Why are we fighting Eden Prime first? And there's suddenly sort of a realization of what that actually meant in the grand scheme of things for Mitron. And I like that. I like the payoff.
And of course, the fairy that they're talking about.
Yeah.
And the what's the name of it? The Idol of Darkness.
Yeah.
That's also Mitron.
Yeah.
That's Mitron being able to project himself in a very, very limited capacity outside of his body. And again, his whole plan was to basically take control of his own body and pilot his own body to restore it with that ultimate goal in mind.
Yeah. And it also explains why he could control Sin Eaters, as chat brings up. Why was the Idol of Darkness able to control them? It's because he's the first. He's the progenitor.
Well, we got an explanation for that actually with the Idol of Darkness, is that it was using astral ether to attract them. Yeah. Right? Is that we know the Sin Eaters, the reason why they're going to Novrant to feed rather than just hanging out in the empty is because, like, in the same way that Voidsent need like living ether, the Sin Eaters need ether that is not just pure like light umbral static. They need ether that has some like astral aspect to it so that they can stay alive and stay like moving and not just be statues or puddles of goo or whatever the alternative would be. So Mitron is kind of like using that to like manipulate them and direct them around and all of that. The result is that as we're going around restoring the empty, we're restoring Mitron. And where we think that we have like put enough repolarized ether back into the land that it'll like spread beyond it, it doesn't.
It actually
and in this
starts to
final
die.
chapter, in this final chapter, we come back and we see that, it's starting to die, and we're kind of speculating why that might be. The penny doesn't drop yet. Like, we don't realize that it's something about Eden. Gaia was basically like, oh, it's probably got something to do with that final encounter and the fact that you basically turn into Hydaelyn. And that ether subsequently that we put back into the land was like massively over aspected to light, and kind of like reversed a lot of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and try and put some dark ether. We're going to try and like help reverse that polarity.
You got to admit, regardless of whether she was being manipulated, it makes perfect sense. It's a completely like Urian J, I think, would have come to the exact same conclusion. I feel. And if he thinks it, everyone should think it.
You know, I can't help but I really feel like Urian J was pulling a massive prank this whole time.
He's always pulling a massive prank.
Because he was listen. As soon as we see it, he's like, oh, that's the first Sin Eater. And we're like, Urian J, what the hell do you mean by that? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's just, you'll see. You'll figure it out. All right? I believe in you guys. You'll figure it out. It's the first Sin Eater, all right?
Little do you know, when he actually attained that tome back in like Heavensward, it was like, hey, by the way, this is what happened on the first. And he's like, oh, they're going to be really surprised I know this. I'm not going to tell them anything. No, yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I'll keep that for later.
Yeah, exactly. He knows. He always knows. And then when Reen is like, "Oh, I'll help channel this ice ether with my light powers," Urian J is just like, "Yeah, all right, okay, yeah, you go do that. Yeah, great idea. That'd be good."
Yeah, we'll be gone by the time you have to deal with that. So good luck.
Cool. Yeah, great. Oh, jeez, he knew the whole time. I
can't wait to go back and tell him. You know what? Can you talk to Thancred or Urian J anywhere? Just like, no?
Nope.
That'd actually be really... I'm curious to see if... Because I feel like if we could, then it'd probably be some
relay
text.
messages, though. That's the thing. Like, we can... Like,
I think they've gone radio silent.
Yeah.
I think we're concerned about, like, link pearl transmissions being intercepted and stuff like that when people tend to go that far north.
Yeah.
However, they did bring up the fact that, Lolgrith is an Ascian and she can go wherever the fuck she wants to go. So there's a possibility that she can, in theory, that there's a possibility that she can come to the source.
I mean, Titania can always come to the source.
Yeah.
No, never forget that Titania can, at least in our dreams, come to the source. Maybe not physically, but in our dreams, that's how she talked to Tataru. So she reached out to Tataru.
She's an ethereal being.
Yeah, so she can just do whatever the fuck she wants.
I should say.
The Fae are.
Yeah.
They can just show up and just be like, fuck it, hey, what's up, man? You got a party going on here? What's going on in Mordoni? Y'all want to be trees? What's up?
Gaia could come to the source if she gave up her body and, assigned her soul to a crystal of darkness or a crystal of light. That's how they do it. That's the only way to do it. And, Reen could too. She's got the echo. It's, that's the prerequisite. That's the sacrifice that has to be made.
Does she have the echo? I don't know that
Reen?
I don't know if she's ever used. I mean, obviously Minfilia had it, but other than having the blessing of Minfilia, I don't know. Could she ever used it? Like I don't think we've ever seen it.
I don't know if she's ever used it, but she's got she's got it. She's got it. You're muted, Sly.
We assume.
Yeah, she said she's never heard. I mean, she's only spoken to Minfilia. To be fair, she's never heard Hydaelyn's voice, but that's because Hydaelyn doesn't have a voice. Minfilia is Hydaelyn's voice.
Yeah.
But now, she did have a voice, but she doesn't anymore.
Right.
She had a voice.
Hydaelyn
she lost
doesn't
it.
have a voice.
She used to, but she doesn't. And then it was Minfilia. Hydaelyn just... We heard it during that, we don't really know how to judge the whole showing of the Final Days thing and hearing Hydaelyn. We really don't know how to judge, because last we were told she couldn't speak, and that's why she needed Minfilia to be the voice of the mother. And now Minfilia is gone, so us hearing that speech is probably just Ascian bullshittery. The hear, feel, think thing. But that's why I don't believe Reen has the act. I don't think just because Minfilia was, a part of her. I don't think automatically
maybe that is a leap. Maybe that is a leap.
Yeah, that's my only.
But I mean, yeah, it's neither here nor there. So where are we at? Yeah, okay, we're trying to repolarize the ether in the empty, and we think, oh well, it would be great if we had like a darkness primal to do that, right?
See, we actually predicted this on this show a long time ago. We didn't predict Cloud of Darkness. We thought they were going to use Bahamut because he's aspected to darkness.
Astral, yeah.
Yeah, that was something we actually predicted. We just got the boss wrong. So good to see that actually was brought in and made the kind of the answer to the problem here.
Well, at this point, I was a little bit disappointed because I really had my heart set on the like plot twist of using Eden to help restore the void, right? The idea that we had, what is in essence a terraforming machine. Yeah. We've got all of this light ether here that we need to, do something with. Hey, maybe if we pick that up and dump some of that in the void, then maybe that would start to like restore the void. And that maybe the Void Walker was an attempt by the Ascians to kind of take control of Eden so that they could go and do that, right? And that was their plan, because they need to restore the void to be able to rejoin it, and that maybe we would kind of like see eye to eye there and like be able to set our differences aside, maybe with Mitron and or Logrif, and like be like, all right, this is in both of our interests. Of course, that we see that starting to happen in another quest line, which we'll come to, which I was very, very glad and relieved to see. But that was originally like what I was hoping to happen with Eden. But that's not the case. We make a primal, a simulacrum of a darkness aspected entity. And I guess because like we haven't necessarily fought Bahamut, right?
Yeah, whereas Cloud of Darkness is mandatory.
Yes. Yeah. You could have gone with Nidhogg as well. Like in Nidhogg, all of his stuff is very like, darkness astral aspected kind of shit. But yeah, I mean, we went with Cloud of Darkness.
It could have been Diablos, it could have been, but I think Cloud of Darkness, because I think you're right in the sense that Cloud of Darkness being mandatory and being literally Cloud of thing we need.
Yeah, it's right there in the name. Yeah.
It makes sense. A lot of people kind of figured that was probably the reason she showed up. We floated the idea of us going again. I think out of the hope that Eden would be partially used in the story of the 13th. But that was the other logical standpoint. Other people were projecting that it's probably to restore darkness, and that ended up being the prediction that held true. I don't know why we remember her being that scantily clad, other than it's already used in another Final Fantasy game. She was a giant being, a face that just went.
Yeah,
that was
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Rena and Guy were like, so she was hot? Okay, she was hot. Got it.
Yeah, we were just horny on main. That's all we were. That's all it was.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we did it with Rama, we did it with Titan. Like, we just can't hold it together, can we? Yeah.
And funny thing with Garuda, we remember exactly. With Garuda, they're like, listen. I can't get the details exactly right, but I got that one for the most part.
She had a nice rack.
And then with Ifrit, they're like, nah, put him on. I don't need him on all fours. Just make him stand up. He needs to be hot too.
I think the fact that the Warrior of Light has never had any romance options in the game is really starting to like take its toll.
Not that he hasn't had lack of options. He's just he or she is just oblivious to everyone who's interested in them. Xenos is holding out. They're holding out for Xenos at this point.
Ay.
And then Leviathan are like, I can't fix that. Just two heads. I don't know.
So anyway, we do that. We repolarize a bunch of that ether and dump it back in, and then Mitron's like, "Oh, this darkness. Thank you. Yummy.
Is that what he does? He rubs his darkness like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And he's finally strong enough to be able to like project his form and hold a conversation with us. And then he kind of like starts to explain things. It's like, hey, what's up? And at that point, it's very, very obvious. I think that Gaia is Logrif. I don't know if anyone was kind of surprised, like at the end when we found out that that was in fact the case.
No, as soon as he shows up and he says,
Semi-surprised?
"Oh, you don't remember," I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah.
It was kind of like in 5.3 when you have the book with the Warrior of Light. You're instantly like, "Oh."
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see where this is going.
That's pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah, and in order to, well, okay, so here's the problem. When an Ascian dies, its soul is recycled and reborn somewhere else at some other time. The Ascians identify it. They find that person, they identify it, they like kidnap them or whatever, and they use those little zodiac stones, those crystals that Emmett and La Habrea made, to restore some of their memories, some semblance of self. It's not their memories. Again, we need to remember it's the recordings of like the three unsundered. They've like written down like everything that they can remember and kind of put them in these crystals and kind of use that to like give them some sort of, you know, simulacrum of their old personality. But they don't have those anymore because Emmett Selk's gone. So Logrif doesn't have that option. Mitron can't do that for her anymore. Right. So his idea is to suppress and basically destroy all of Gaia's memories and then start to replace them with other images, other ideas. And ultimately that he would kind of do the Ascian Prime thing again, and that she would get access to all of his memories of her as a result, and that would kind of like bring her back to herself.
Yeah.
But we also find out that they have had like this romantic interest, you know, in the pre-sundered world, and that as a result that is kind of carried through like every iteration of theirs. They've always kind of like redeveloped these feelings for each other. And so as a result, Mitron, when he joined with her as Ascian Prime, that was just like so good. He was way into that. And that's all he really wanted to do again. That was his ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Was to be with her.
Speaking of Mitron, Ethys, I kind of had a question in regards to Mitron. Well, in regards to most Ascians that we've seen this far, and knowing what we know now in Shadowbringers, specifically the information that we find out in academia.
Okay.
Like, why do we never see when we see Mitron? Like from what we know in academia Anadir, Mitron was like his devotion, his study was to ichthyology, to fish. Why do we never see that come out in the actual like story? Or
what, you want him to like you want to fight him and have him just like spamming sardine?
Not spamming sardine, but like I would like to see something relegated to his study, like you know, to his creation magic.
Yeah,
like
I mean, okay. So the thing is, he was an expert in like ichthyological creation magics, right?
Yeah.
But Emmett Selk and La Habrea and Elidibus were not, right?
Yeah,
so it's kind of like
phantomology.
So like, their memories of him,
exactly.
They can't match what he was able to do. Yeah.
Exactly. So if your best friend has got like a PhD in physics, right? And you're trying to like write their biography without being able to interview them because they are already dead. You and then give that to someone else and be like, hey, read this and do your best to become this person. That person is not going to be anywhere near, you know, that level of, that's kind of how I would think of it. But that is a really interesting question. Perhaps it's like a bit of a missed opportunity to give them a little bit more flavor, isn't it?
Yeah,
but it also makes sense within the world.
If they're gonna throw like all these, like if they're gonna throw Anadurs at us and like they're like the words of Mitron, the words of Helmarut, the words of La Habrea, they're gonna throw all this lore at us. Like, why not fucking use it?
I think it's better that it's this way. It's more consistent with how the memory crystals are created.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's really important for us to remember that, like, apart from the three Unsundered, these are all different people. They were all completely different people that lived their own lives, like up to the point where they were, you know, kidnapped by the Ascians and kind of forced into this role, you know, because those three are just unable to let go of the past.
Or they were, because now they're fucking dead.
They're dead. Yeah, so Metron takes Gaia and basically confronts us with another simulacrum, the effect of which he hopes is twofold. I mean, the main effect is, you know, rule of cool and fan service and us getting to, like, see a fight against the Shadowkeeper, obviously. But he's like, all right, Igayom and I were witnessing this. This was, like, something that we did together, and this was, like, a part of, like, our plan. So maybe if I present her with this image, that'll start to, like, you know, help move things along. And also, I'm going to try to use it to kill the rest of you jabronis.
Yes. And that was also, thankfully, in line with the predictions when we saw the Deep Shadow Sword, because we knew from the quest line that Scylla had a Deep Shadow Sword.
Yes.
So the consistency there is appreciated.
We also knew, and speaking of consistency, I really enjoyed this, the gnolls in Lakelands, those little, like, wolf creatures, they were elves.
Yep.
That were transformed by the Shadowkeeper. They're basically like werewolves. She already had that power. And it seems that power was, in a way, given to her by the Ascians. But you've also got to remember that the Warriors of Light from the 13th Shards were using Aurasites, basically to transform themselves, presumably. They were using it to, like, capture and store, like, primals. And then those primals started to, like, bleed out and influence them. And then they transformed.
Yep.
And they became the first Void Sense. So it's possible that this power that Silva has is, like, harkens back to that and is as a result of that. And this is kind of her, like, Lucavi form in a way.
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure, but it's like an interesting kind of thing to ruminate.
According to chat, Metron states that was given to her by the Ascians. Which, to be fair, that actually is still in line with your prediction, because that was them trying to do a rejoining, and it just went horribly awry.
Yeah,
so it's still in line with
presumably.
it.
They presumably gave the Aurasite to the Warriors of Light on the 13th Shard. They were, you know, manipulating all that. But yeah, so the second fight there is a recreation of the fight, you know, immediately after the cutscene that we see in the final role quest, where they confront Silva. It's a recreation of the fight between Arbit and his companions and Silva as the Shadowkeeper. So that was awesome. That was really cool.
Yeah.
But obviously it didn't work.
No, and what results afterwards is Metron and Logriff, Ascian Prime, the whole thing you described earlier. And it was just, there's so many things that come together. Every boss kind of makes sense in their own kind of fucked up way, and breaking apart how each of the bosses in Eden makes sense, especially the final one, which I can't wait to get to, is particularly, I don't know, there's a lot that goes into this, and where you talked about having to retcon things with Livia and Gaius and Wurlit, everything here has a line that can be drawn on the chalkboard, pretty much. And it's satisfying from somebody who follows the story. I might get it wrong every Air Zivia, but I follow it. Listen, I can enjoy it. I just, when you ask me next time, I won't remember. It'll be the one thing I don't remember. So, like you said, this doesn't work, and that does not make Metron happy. So, Metron decides he's done playing things by, you know, anything but force. So he's like, listen, just fucking get in here, and I'll figure the rest out later, okay? So he forces an Ascian Prime fusion with Gaia at this point. And then has the brilliant idea of using Reen's memories to create something that can deal with us.
Double dream, daddy.
Triple. Because Innocence is in there too. Valkyrie is in there too.
Yeah,
I
it's
forgot about that.
the primal of daddy issues.
It's the primal of way too many different male influences is what it is.
Yeah.
That is so perfect. Thank you, Ethys. That is so perfect.
It's fucking creepy, man. It's real creepy.
But the thing is, I refuse to call him anything but Thanjeet. I won't call him like Thangenicence or something like that. I won't do it. Or Thanjothri.
Rancredescence.
No, because I think you have to go with Vothri instead of Innocence. Because the reason why he's called Innocence is because he was born a sin eater, so he has no sins, kind of thing. So you got to go with Vothri. Yeah. So, yeah, that was just going aside from lore. That was a great third boss.
Yeah,
I'll agree.
It uses the jail from the trailer, which I appreciate, and we see it briefly in I think one cutscene throughout Shadowbringers early on. The Final Fantasy VIII music feels quite fitting to this, and then it's literally Thancred, Vothri, and Ranjit all in one boss, and it's just really cool. And it's all Reen's thoughts. It's all lore that we've explored. It all comes. Everything makes sense. Every attack makes sense. Everything comes together there. I just appreciate it. There's not much to really break apart from it because it's literally just Reen's memories put together.
Yeah.
So from a story aspect, it doesn't really add much other than filling a boss. But
although all this stuff about like channeling people's memories, like forcing people's memories, and also like specifically her like fears and hopes, giving that form, forcing that to take form as something that the Ascians can do under certain special circumstances is something that is feeding into the MSQ.
Yes.
So that's important. And
very,
we will get there.
Very important. Yes, we will get there.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you have anything to add about that.
The primal of daddy issues. That's what I'm
the primal of daddy issues. Yeah, that's what he is.
I don't know if you have anything else to add into this, other than it's still interesting to see that despite being created to destroy us, he still is actually just trying to protect Reen. Like the being's ultimate goal.
End all be all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that specifically Thancred's, I guess, consciousness seems to be the primary consciousness of that being, and not just his face.
Can you really say that? Because Ranjit kind of had the same thing in the end.
Sort of, but like in a fucked up kind of way.
I think it's the idea that like her hopes overcome her fears. You know? That very sort of like poetic thing is that this monster that's an amalgamation of both, it's the good side that wins out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Reen, thank you for not becoming... The last time you got involved, you became a mini Hydaelyn and almost caused a second flood of light. A little bit better this time.
You had to kill a fucking teenager.
Yeah.
A naked teenager.
Yeah. You're not going anywhere. I also like them using, in the earlier scene, when they talk about Thancred's gunblade that he left behind for Reen. It shows up exactly in that memory. Like, you'd expect it to, but they do the zoom in on it, so when you see it later, you kind of can pull apart, like, what it means to her and that specific. How specific, compared to everything else, it's very detailed, the exact weapon, in terms of how she perceives it and how it is in her memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, now this is interesting, and it brings up the question of whether or not Mitron is tempered, or whether he's not tempered and has his own agenda, or whether he's just trying to like do the Zodiac agenda in a very like strange, unique, novel way,
roundabout way.
Yeah. But this also ties into like the Ultimecia references.
Oh, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, where Mitron's ultimate goal ends up being like, I want to rejoin everything, not just the shards. I want to rejoin all of space and all of time into one moment, one perfect moment with me and my Bay Logriff, and that's all that exists, and everything is that, and nothing is anything else. So that's kind of the stake there, and that's what Eden's promise is trying to become. And as for the form it takes, we got to remember that yes, it's an Ascian, it's an Ascian Prime. Ascian Prime, we already fought one, and overwhelmingly of like darkness aspect and all that. We got to remember that it's got like the darkness in it, it's got all the light from Eden, and it's got all of these different elements that we've now figured that we were not restoring back to the land so much as we were just like empowering Eden with. So it's this kind of superpowered entity that at its core is a couple of sundered and relatively weak Ascians, but has absorbed a massive amount of ether from various parts of the first, and also from all of the light ether that it absorbed to become this light warden effectively. So, like, a massively powerful entity.
Now, one of my favorite things right off the bat, and this doesn't become apparent until you kind of finish the encounter, but the design is actually quite close to that of Artemis, which will play into what we eventually find out, that Mitron's non-seeded name, much like Hades was to him itself, is actually Artemis. And that in some translations, it's Artemisia, which is one of the translations for Ultimecia. So it like loops all the way back around to get to the reference for Ultimecia here, both in appearance and in name for Mitron. So it's one of those, you have to go really deep to get to that Ultimecia reference with Eden's Promise.
Not so deep in Savage.
No, that's a whole different story there. We'll get to that in a little bit. It's they put again, I can't stress enough how much Eden goes into using memories to put very specific details into these different things, and also still wanting to pay homage to the old Final Fantasies. It's a very original take on something that is familiar to Final Fantasy. And that's what I wanted to see. After Omega, that's kind of what I wanted. Omega was literally, fuck it, they're from, who cares? And this is a very original vision on something. It subverted expectations while still being exactly what everyone expected it to be.
Yeah, so they did a really, really good job with it, for sure.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we defeat Mitron. And the interesting point here is that with Mitron dead now, we don't have to like stick him in white auracite and hit him with a blade of light and grind him into dust, because there's no one left to put him back on that seat to turn him back into an Ascian.
Yeah. It just means he's now endlessly going to cycle through lives, basically, because at his core he's still, a sundered. It's. I wonder if you're never reseeded. It's weird, the idea of your soul, I guess, repeating the cycle. I guess it's just that it's like a kind of, it's a recessive like trait, like you've still held on to like some of the original unsundered. It's kind of like how Ardbert, people project, was probably a piece of Azim's sundered soul, I suppose, kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's interesting that, we are not going to necessarily need Oriange to keep producing white auracite for us. And there's, the nice moment where, when, as they're kind of like joined, and Gaia has some, semblance of Logriff's memories of her identity, they have, a nice moment there. And Logriff is like, I'll always remember you. And then Gaia's immediately like, who the hell was that guy? That was so rough.
that was a little bit dirty, I feel. That was a little bit dirty.
The encounter itself also has a lot of great moments. As much as people don't like having that every time you want to do E12, you got to do that long string of memories there. But you get to see some of the events that happen in between our experiences with Eden, the coffee biscuits that they talked about, little details that we've gotten, splitting one and then being like, that was really good, let's split another. And it's like, well, why didn't we order one each? I don't understand. Gaia and her common sense here. Come on now.
Yeah.
The lipstick, the ice crystal, all those things. And especially considering these raids aren't voiced, like the actual story quests aren't voiced, getting these moments voiced is a kind of a little extra treat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like it.
It was a really cool fight. You know, the diegetic storytelling all the way through Shadowbringers has just been absolutely phenomenal with every fight, with every encounter, with every dungeon. And this, you know, like I found the boss, like E12, a lot of people were a little bit like underwhelmed by it and the spectacle that we've kind of come to expect from a final boss of a raid series. Obviously, like Savage, you know, makes up for that. But yeah, I think it was really great. It was really sort of a nice kind of poignant ending.
Yeah, like I said,
it's
this
safe to say
like this.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'm just reiterating, same thing. It's like this, though. It's consistent. It's got its moments. It's got its ups and then sometimes downs. But it's very level the whole time. It tells a story and it gets to the point, the end of it, while still sprinkling in other things that are important or things that we've related to the MSQ.
So in terms of game features, it's safe to say you both would be amenable to more, you know, voice lines within
Always.
Of course.
not only raid, but, you know, within
Always.
our raid story.
Yeah, always. I mean, Coil is a
fair.
great example of how much having the voice, like when Alice and Alphino are talking to the tempered Louis Soir, and then the, you know, before he finally passes Louis, that's a huge moment in Coil. If that wasn't voiced, that scene.
But it was a big moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it.
So look no further than that to see what having a fully voiced raid story would do, both in 8-man's and 24-man's. As unfeasible as they may, you know, say it is given their schedule, even just how much storytelling is done with the voices in the actual fights. I mean, the trailer for the patch literally has the E12 boss voice lines. It has her in Rage with Farewell, Servant of Light, and then it has the very first line that she speaks, which is, you know, we shall draw your memories from you, which we kind of predicted, but, you know.
Well, fuck, why couldn't we get Shadowkeeper fucking voice? I would have loved that.
Oh, people are waiting for Scylla to be voiced,
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
God.
Well, you know, like voice acting is one of those things where it's an issue of prioritizing both budget and you know, developmental bandwidth, particularly when you're trying to like have a pretty fast turnaround for patches. But you know, 14's demonstrated again, like even back in Call, you don't need every cutscene to be voiced. It's not like it's not an all.
Realm Reborn has made that
like
obvious.
I mean, well, I feel like that, but at the same time, I feel like there are certain moments, certain cues that they really missed the mark on.
Yeah,
in terms of voice acting. And
yeah.
And those scenes, all that happened in normal mode. I mean, even in Savage, which is not canon, but is still the canon explanation for Savage existing here is also a little bit better than in previous ones. Where you know, with Alexander, it's like I remember that, and then with Omega, it's like simulating battle conditions, you know, and then this is like it's actually. The story explanation is that it's literally a memory crystal. Every time it's a discovered memory crystal. It's Mitron's memory crystals. Yeah. That are found, and his embellishments, as opposed to something like, you know, the Wandering Minstrel. And they have conversations around it when you go to unlock Savage, and it's quite well done for this. I feel like that's never going to happen again. I feel like this is the only Savage explanations that's ever going to be like that, I guess, in depth, but could be wrong.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of memory crystals, with Mitron dead, Gaia has no memories left. That's all been deleted.
Yeah.
And the thing that was kind of feeding her the Logriff identity is also gone. So she's, you know, she's just gone. She's completely catatonic. Her mind is lost. And it turns out that, you know, that little Chekhov's gun that we knew was going to come back in the form of that little Shiva crystal. You know, a pretty common quality of crystals that we know of and we've known for a very long time is that they can store memory, is that memories can be imprinted on them. And it seems that that's exactly what it was doing. It was taking an imprint of memories of her time with Reen, and that was enough to sort of like bring her out of this comatose state and back to herself, which was cute.
It's very Final Fantasy. It's literally copied right from Final Fantasy VIII. Almost that entire end.
Yeah, sequence. It was shot for shot. Actually,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen that video, but there's
I played that game. As soon as she started walking, I'm like, well, I didn't need to see a side by side. I knew. I've played that game enough times.
Yeah. There's a video like breaking it down. It's literally like shot for shot, side by side. It's really, really nice. Yeah.
And the end result is the empty is now fully sprouting life. Like ultimately Mitron's defeat.
They know that it, I was kind of wondering about that because you can see like in the distance there's like green hills and stuff.
Yeah.
It hasn't restored everything.
But it's doing what they wanted where it's gradually
Right.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, like, if you were in Amarang and you go to the edge to see outside of, the crack of
it's still the empty.
Yeah, it's still the empty.
Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point. It was never supposed to happen instantly. It was just supposed to. It was the idea was to create a focal point with which it could travel outward
to expand.
Yeah,
to expand.
But that's very much become a reality by the end of the story, and just like we kind of expected with the initial reveal of Eden, it was literally the garden from 8, which is where the end scene takes place, and it's a single thing popping out of the ground, symbolizing the restoring the life to the empty. And it's again the Garden of Eden. It's all very Final Fantasy. It's all, if you don't know Final Fantasy 8, you won't hurt you. But if you do, you know what Eden was in 8, or what it was probably, and what a lot of the Squall's lie. The idea of seed is to plant flowers all over the world. Like it's all so buried deep in that final scene.
Mm-hmm. So I think we could probably agree that having an exploratory zone in 6.x taking place outside of Novrant in the other places that are starting to get life back could be on the cards. Because, we know that we're going to be like back to the source next expansion, and we can't just like leave Novrant behind. We got to be coming back here for, like side quests and side content. And that would be like a pretty obvious one to go with.
Yeah.
But Mike, you were suggesting that you don't think this story is finished yet.
No, I think we're going to get another quest in 0.5. I think they're going to give us an actual finale. I think what they're doing with this, I think all of Shadowbringers, everything that's on the first, they're leaving plot lines open on purpose in case they want to re-explore them in the future. And they very much show that here. With, of course, Gaia may not have Logriff's memories, but Gaia knows she's an Ascian, essentially. She has that soul power. Now. And they immediately, as soon as she goes, I'm sure I could figure out a way to tear open rifts between worlds. You look at Reen and you're like, oh, I need to tell Thancred right away.
Yeah. But, okay, so this is going to be a huge problem, because if she does, then there's either going to need to be a compelling explanation that the Ascians could never have come up with before, or else there's going to be a retcon, because it's been established that the Ascians had to give up their bodies.
Yeah.
And that Ardbert and his crew, they had to give up their bodies as well. You can't take it with you. We've destroyed the twinning, so like that whole thing's not an option either. Yeah, she would have to sacrifice her body.
Good thing we have somebody who knows a lot about bringing souls across the rift with us on the source now.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That is true.
We got a couple of people actually now with what's her fucking face. Yeah. Makoto is going to get involved at some point or another.
I don't know. Get through Save the Queen, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm just a little bit concerned that like everything is getting much smaller and much easier, particularly in 5.4. There's a lot of like huge issues that have been these huge, like insurmountable issues, since 1.0 that are now suddenly just like, got it, done, solved, fixed.
But it's not like it's come out of nowhere. It's just, it's all it's been, how do we do this? And now it's like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the day. And I don't have a problem because there are a lot of plot lines that have just been open for too long. And like been a question for too long. And the answers have gradually been like pieces of them have been put here, there. Yeah. And when they finally do come together, I'm not going to be upset that it all came together at once because it's just been strung along for so long. So,
Well,
I don't think this. I think at the very least we get a 5.5 goodbye the festival that they talk about at the very least. This is the second time a festival's come. First we had the Dwarven Festival. Now we got this. Then I think we at least get that like final little between patch goodbye. It's kind of like, we're moving on. We're going to the source. Obviously we have our own things to deal with. But I just don't. I think that what's happening with Fandaniel is, and we're going to get into that, is too big to not include Reen and Gaia almost to a degree. So, obviously that would mean you'd need to finish Eden if that were to be the case for them to get involved again. So, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good segue into MSQ.
Well, there's
MSQ.
one more thing.
Yeah.
Because in Savage, we essentially get what the bad end would have been for Eden. Where Gaia remembers junctions to Logriff's memories and actually does become Logriff again. And we get a full explanation of her time magic, of what Logriff was technically capable of. And what defines Logriff. She constantly, and then she's still obsessed with the idea that Mitron kind of had as well, the idea of compressing every memory into one single moment.
There's also
this is why.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, there was just that one line that's dropped here in the conversation between Mitron and Logriff, that Logriff was originally going to be the heart of Zodiac.
Yes.
And that Elidibus, for some reason, took her place. Either was considered, more suitable, or I don't know, she fucked up in some way, or like there was some reason, but she was the one that was originally supposed to do it.
And this is why I want to see more Ascian lore within Dungeon. Like if we get another editor, I'm fine with it. Like I don't know if you're tired of the editors, but like we can extrapolate we can extrapolate to a certain extent so much out of it. But at the same time, I would love to get another Ascian focused or ancient focused dungeon to kind of extrapolate like what they were capable of.
I think
we'll meet Venat. We'll meet Venat eventually.
Yeah, I'm fairly. I feel like now Ascians are starting to go the way of Alligans, where they're going to be interspersed across everything. That's because they have it's just factually since the Sundering, they are interspersed into everything. Whether or not it's something dedicated to them is less relevant than how many places they're present. So I feel like that's unavoidable to some degree, and I agree that it should happen. Even they may return to deep dungeons in 6.x, and that may be an opportunity to explore it in some degree. Not that they've Palace of the Heaven on High does somewhat of it. I know you're a bigger fan of the Heaven on High world building than I am, Ethys. I'm more interested. I wish they did more with Palace of the Dead, but I like the idea of it more.
I agree.
Yeah. So there's always that possibility. We can't close that door indefinitely, at the very least.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, with Logriff apparently had time magic. That was was her thing. That was her spec. Gaia even says she has no idea how she has these powers. She's just born with. She's just always had them.
So are we assuming the words of Logriff is just time related now?
I mean, we can see how Mitron can memories is not that surprising for Mitron because we know how the Ascians dealt with, reseeding the convocation was all memories. But he seems to have a much deeper grasp on that specific, aspect of creation magic, I suppose. And her creation magic seems entirely dealt around time. It's also worth noting that the La Habrea quote of the Hammer of Darkness brought to bear against the Shield of Light. We've always noticed Gaia had that Hammer of Darkness and the symbolism of E8.
Yeah.
We now understand kind of the inspiration of it. She was going to become the heart of Zodiark even, and that would have been a more literal Hammer of Darkness brought against the Shield of Light.
You gotta wonder, if time magic is her thing, and the effect of becoming the heart of Zodiac would be to, I guess, massively, expand that. If she couldn't have just as Zodiac just turned back the clock, If
she had become Zodiac's heart, I think the Ascians would have had a better time.
It kind of seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way.
And you wanted to segue into the MSQ. I wanted to segue into the Void Quests.
Yeah, I mean that works just as well, considering we were hoping that that Eden would sort of do that. So you wanna carry us there?
Well, so the Void Quests are, again, another long-standing, I guess, thing we've been waiting for closure. 5.4 just tries to bring closure to a lot of plot lines that were left hanging, or at least push them forward to some degree. The Void Quests kind of start with the finale role quest, which brings essentially the next generation of Warriors of Light, kind of the Ardburton crew, which was always, I guess, kind of the goal of the combined role quests, is they all, deal with the Sin Eater versions and acquire the memory crystals of the of Ardburt's crew, other than Ardburt himself. And so they kind of give it a finale quest. If you were to never do the Void Quest, you would see that they essentially do band together to become the next, Ardburton crew. And
they're going to be the new sort of Novrat Scions.
And what's great about this is everyone on the first knows about all the different shards. Like, there's no mystery about that anymore. So open conversation about who's who and how they there's no, like, awkward, wow, there's no way, that's impossible. It's like, they've seen everything on the first. So you just tell them who Ciela is.
Yeah, oh, by the way, that's the Shadow Keeper.
Yeah. And they all kind of just come to accept, like, how she's, like, evolved. Like, it's very satisfying to see everything kind of get pulled together, because it all begins with Ciela wanting to preserve all the memory crystals of Ardburton crew as sort of her. She's gonna live forever because of her gift, the gift she was given, and so she wants to preserve their memories essentially forever. And that's now her prison, in a sense, her penance for what she did.
Well, we have the option to call her the Story Keeper.
Yeah, as opposed to the Shadow Keeper now. Yeah.
Which is, I think, really, really nice.
Yeah. And Branson's drinking problem, which is more of a problem because he took one sip. I love orange juice. They had a fun time with those quests. You could tell. Both with Giot and her overabundance of drinking and way too chill of a mood, to him on the ground, just eyes open, looking up. It was a lot of fun.
But the really interesting thing there is that Silver is talking about her experience on the 13th.
Yes.
And the other Warriors of Light there, and basically one thing that she sort of attributed to their failure, I mean, obviously it was the Ascians' failure, but one thing that she attributed was the fact that there were several Warriors of Light on the 13th, but they did not band together. They did not have an organization like the Scions. They did not, do what Arbit and his crew did. They were just kind of like working on their own, and they never connected. And as a result, things got on top of them and spiraled out of control. But she spoke to Unakalhai briefly after Elidibus had kind of like pulled them both out of there, and felt really bad. And like, we kind of mention that we're well acquainted with him and we've worked with him, and she's like, oh man, that's wild. Like, I would really love to like talk to him. Would you send him a message? And we're like, you know what, we might actually be able to do one better than that.
And Orianjay, the prankster that he is, has to get involved. So yeah, once we do that, once we we talk about the idea of bringing our message across, we go to Unakalhai, takes the mask off, as he has for the past however many patches. He's been there for 4 years now, so he's been waiting very patiently. Been just freeloading in Minfilia's old room, just completely. But apparently more so to the knowledge of the Scions than we maybe gave him initial credit. Because they know he's been in there this whole time. Some of them did know because we were working with them. Obviously, we had Kryl and whatnot. So they're aware he's there. But Orianjay, you tell him that, she's there. And then he'd say, he's like, I'd like to meet her. And then Orianjay's like, I know a way. We kind of spent a whole half expansion trying to figure out how to do this right. But it might be easier with you.
Well, it is easier with
Yeah.
him because, again, like the Ascians, like Albert and his crew, he's already had like the cord cut between his soul and his body through Ascian magic, and that what those like vessels are basically just like an artificial crystal of darkness.
Yeah.
They kind of operate in the same sort of way, and we can just ferry him over.
Bring him back. He just comes out naked is the only problem, according to Beck Lug.
Yeah. Man, this was really nice. Like, it's only been, 5 years he's been sitting around in that room.
Like I said, 4 years. It was 3.5 was the last time we spoke. We had to speak to him if you were doing the Warring Tribe. You could, obviously, we've gone back. There's no NPC that people have gone to every patch more than Unakalhai. To see if he has anything new to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time it's like, yo, do you see he's got two new lines. Two new lines. One day. Today that was 5.4. His day finally came.
Oh, I was so happy for him.
And Beck Lug was like, "Are you fucking kidding me with this? After everything are you fucking stupid?" And you can give her so much sass, and she's just like beyond you at that point. She's like, "What the? All right, just fuck off. I'll take care of it. All right, you've really buggered this up, and I can't take it."
I'm so glad that Beck Lug acknowledged that, because it really was a case of like, oh, remember that thing that like we only managed to pull off by an absolute miracle that we were working on for months and months and months and months. You just went and did it in like 5 minutes, huh? Okay, great. Awesome, thanks.
And I was like, "Can you fix this?" Or and she's just like, "Listen, he'll be naked. I'll take him to you. Just meet me at this location. You've explained it. Just fucking get out of here. I need to focus." All right. Yeah, and it's very. And the chat brings it up. The fact that she's a fae is very, is very, very Numo in this, and very also crotchety old, been around for 100 years in a castle all alone, kind of attitude going on here. She's very much the Matoya.
The first Matoya.
Yeah, she's very much the Matoya of the first in this regard. I mean, that was always kind of apparent, like from the beginning, that she was essentially the
pretty
Matoya.
much.
Yeah.
I also like that Beck Lug is, when they meet Ciela, is like, "Motherfucker, was that you in Groilus Licht? Did you do that?" Because again, well, obviously Beck Lug doesn't realize that the plague, the thing that basically transformed people into void sense, at Vobert, Silva did that. She was responsible for that. There was that. I can't remember the guy's name, the Archmage.
Yeah.
He was the one that like literally did it, but he was working for her.
Yeah. And that was the thing that drove her into 100 years of exile, essentially.
Yeah, Tadric, that's it. Yeah, I feel like if Beck Lug really knew, there would be a little bit more of some bad blood here between them.
So I don't watch a whole lot of anime, but I think I put this with Dragon Ball Super with Frieza and Beerus, because Beerus is like, "Yeah, just destroy the Saiyans. I don't give a fuck." And they're like, "What do you think Vegeta would think if he found out?" He'd be like, "Don't mention anything." Keep that a secret.
Yeah.
So
does seem to be that way.
So Unakalhai shows up maskless, swagged out, basically with his brand new outfit. And immediately, the idea of saving the 13th becomes a topic of conversation.
Well, because he learns about what's happened
on the
here
first.
in Northrend. Yeah, and the fact that we've reversed things here is like, oh damn, what if that could happen to the 13th?
And now, it's fitting, because the whole problem with the 13th, like you said earlier, was, as Ciela states, that they pretty much operated independently, and now they're not. They are both in the same place, and the idea that a band of heroes saving the world is pretty much their inspiration. Again, it all ties back to kind of Azim in a sense. It's as the travel, as the person who traveled around.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it pulls that same idea into it.
I do like that Silva kind of makes the point immediately, like, that the Ascians already decided that that was impossible, because the difference between what's happened here on the first and what happened on the 13th is that on the first, the Ethys is still there. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's just stuck. Yeah, it's just so like completely polarized that it's not moving anywhere. It's just completely stagnant. Whereas on the 13th, there ain't no ether left. It just
they ate it, because that's what that aspect does. They basically it's all consuming.
Yeah, they I mean the Void Sent, like they've eaten, like basically all that's left is they've eaten. But again, like turning that aspect, it accelerated so much that it just exploded.
And the light stays this.
Yeah. So Silver's like, oh, it doesn't seem to be that simple. What do you think, Warrior of Light? And we're like,
This whole quest line is us just being like, yeah, fuck it. That's pretty much us, this whole quest line.
Yeah, and they're like, well, I mean, if the Warrior of Light says we can do it, then let's do it, I guess.
Yeah. And then that ties back into the role quests where, as soon as they started mentioning it, I needed to think no further than the caster role quest. I knew immediately that had to be a factor, because we were already talking about them being able to tear open those rifts way back when. So,
which was really interesting in those role quests. We made the point that Void Sent are much, much rarer on the first than they are on the source, because like the numinal distance between those two shards is so massive. Like calling them the first and the 13th, that's not like arbitrary, that numbering. They are like on opposite ends of this. Again, it's kind of hard to like wrap your head around this kind of like non-physical space that the shards exist in. But opening a void gate on the first is a much more difficult task than it is opening one on the source. And Tainor and the cult that raised him and Nielbear are basically like the only people that have ever really been able to do it.
Until now.
We remember that. Yeah.
Okay, can I say something? Do we think Tainor and Ukalhai were once part of the same soul?
I think it's either that they're shards of each other, or that Unukalhai and Nielbear were.
Right. That I could also see that. Yeah.
Yeah, because Tainor says, like talking to an old friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like, I think they're probably going to be. They got the same eyes, you know. Don't they? Do they?
I'm colorblind. I wouldn't know.
I'm pretty sure they got the same eyes.
I couldn't fucking tell you. Get back to me on that, because I can offer no help.
They do. They have the same eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
They got the exact same purple eyes.
That's a weird color eye to have.
Yeah, I mean that's very specific. Weird. Yeah, that's very specific.
Yeah.
So that's probably the case. But the plan is basically like, well, let's check it out. Let's have a look in the voids, and see if we can, collect some data and, have a look and see what's going on. And we're kind of like, already been there.
I can tell you, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's not real good, but
we
also
we don't
want to
we weren't checking like etheric signatures or anything.
No.
So we literally just there to get, to
Nero was.
Yeah, he's had a little more experience with it than I think he wanted, to be honest.
Yeah. So we basically come up with the idea to use epoxy as a probe.
Yeah. Porxies are getting a lot of fucking airtime now, man.
They really are.
I don't love it. I don't know. Like when you've got like a really serious moment, like a really serious kind of critical narrative beat, and then you put in this little fucking flying pig. It undermines it a little bit for me,
But this does indeed answer the question if a pig's ass is pork. Yes.
Well, it's not though. It's
Pig's
clay.
ass is pork.
That's the problem.
It's pork. No.
It's clay.
No, it's pork.
It's clay. It's clay, but as soon as it looks like a pig's ass, it's pork. That's how powerful the pork
If
is.
somebody makes a clay sculpture of a pig, I'm not eating its ass.
Well,
not happening.
that's your lust. That's your
you're
lust,
You're
bro.
not gonna eat some pork butt?
Not if
No,
it's
no
made
pork
of clay.
Well, your
No.
lust.
I will eat a. That's not gonna taste as good.
Yes, let's pull this. Is a pig's ass in 14 pork?
No,
Yeah, that's a good pull.
it's not. Not if it's a
No.
porksy. That's
You know, I
literally
think-
why they tell you that if you were to cook a porksy, it doesn't become food. It just becomes.
I think we already established this. One of the Amaro ate a porksy and was like, it didn't taste that great actually.
Yeah.
So there
They
you go.
become pork
Some of
slain. Yeah, they become pork slain when you heat them up. This was an Aerzivia question.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't mind me. I'm just pouring myself some more coffee.
Don't worry, I know that feeling.
Coffee.
Do I have any left?
Some coffee.
No, that's my last cup.
All right.
So we do that, and Becklug is like, I don't know, maybe I'm not gonna like get your hopes up. We need to review our findings. It could take years to deduce a suitable solution.
But it won't,
And then
because it was supposed to take... Tanner's like, no, Kalhai, there's no way you could learn how to do this. We were born and trained our whole lives. And he's like, yeah, but no, I got this.
Yeah, but well, it's more like, bro, I'm a warrior of light. Like it's the same. It's the same way that we can like level a job up in 2 days. You know,
We can buy
that's more what I attribute it to, is the fact that Unakalhai is, you know,
He bought a Void Mage potion, that's all.
yeah. And also, you know, if he is the same soul as Tainor, like of course they're going to be able to like
Neilbert, either or.
yeah. Either way, of course they're going to be able to like transfer that knowledge. But Unakai basically admits the same thing. It may be sometime years, maybe, until we can be certain. But I will be here for as long as it takes. I have no doubt that he will be.
Yeah.
He's replaced 5 years of standing in Minfilia's office.
To standing in the fucking bar next to Sayel.
You know what? It's not so bad. It's a lot better. I mean, Silver's been there since, you know, probably since the founding of the Crystarium.
Yeah.
And she's doing all right.
Yeah. This is not done. Bottom line, this quest is not done. This is not like Unakai standing around doing nothing. Like, this will get quests. Without a doubt.
But here's the problem. If we want, like, as I'm sure a lot of us do, to have like either a major piece of side content in the future involving the restoration of the void, or even like, you know, dare we hope, an MSQ arc dealing with restoring the void and going to the void. What we've established here is that we have as prerequisites all of the warring triads, right? All of the role quests and all of those post role quests, right? We've had this before, you know. Bodja, you need to have done Ivalice. For Shadowbringers, you now need to have done the Crystal Tower series. Each of those is like one side quest, right? This is a much, much, much taller order. The prerequisites to be able to continue this, and that makes me worry that it's not perhaps going to end up being a huge piece of content.
I feel like I remember having this conversation and deciding that they may not just make you do all of these things. These things could be things that happen without
shortcut.
Yeah. And that if you have, you'll be better off for it, for understanding everything that's going on. But otherwise, you know, they've proven that they can write a story in such a way that what look like prerequisites now don't necessarily need to be in the future.
Yeah.
And I think if they were, I don't think this ever goes to MSQ, to be clear. I think the Void Quest will remain the Void Quest. I think that's why they're giving it its own title. They didn't say, they literally say end of role quests into Void Quests. Like, they established that. So I think it continues for people who have dived into this story, but no more than 2 or 3 quests ever at a time.
I want this to be like a big thing so badly.
I don't blame you, but I agree that it's too much of a look. Imagine having to be told as a player, level 4 jobs, or in the case of Summoner Scholar, level 3 jobs, do all these quests, go back to Heavensward, do the Warring Triad quest, now do this follow-up quest, and do these 3 follow-up quests, or any other ones that come after. And by the way, you're now allowed to play the expansion. You know? It won't happen.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else really to be said about that other than please look forward to it?
No, just looking forward to it more than anything else.
Hi.
Great.
Now, after 2 hours, we can talk about the MSQ.
Yeah, after 2 hours and 11 minutes.
God, Jesus.
It's a lot to talk about this patch. We knew this was going to be a long one.
There is a lot to talk about this patch.
Mel's upset my sandwich must be getting soggy.
Yeah, BLT will do that.
I don't care. It's It's still bacon. It's still lettuce. It's still tomato. And it's still going to go in my mouth.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. So to be clear, so chat brought up, you don't have to actually beat the Warring Triad Extreme, but oddly, you have to unlock them.
Yeah.
I think it's because he's the quest NPC to unlock all of them. So because they're going to remove him, you need to have unlocked them in order to do. Because you don't have to beat them to finish the quest either. Yeah. So, MSQ is, oh boy.
Oh boy.
I'm just glad to see all the Merlwyb stands come out strong now. All right. After all these years, we were repaid.
We've been spending so much, like, MSQ has always been about Ul'dah. It's been about what's happening in Ul'dah. What's Ul'dah doing next, you know? Like, Gridania, all right, you know, they all get along. There's no conflict there. They all fucking love Kani, and they're all, like, joining hands around the Guardian tree singing Kumbaya. It's fine. They're boring.
Wow.
Particularly since the elementals are now all just, like, a bunch of little bitches. The Calamity, like, messed them right up. But Limsa, on the other hand,
you must be a fucking Maelstrom FC, aren't you?
Of course I am. Of course I am. Merlwyb's my bae.
Oh yeah.
But in Limsa, we haven't really like had any movement since A Realm Reborn, and even in there, like barely anything really since 1.0. And this is kind of like picking all that up. I got to remind you guys, Merlwyb is long past her basic her term, right? There should have been another Trident and subsequently another Admiral several years ago. She's held in because of the Garlean threat, and because she's basically insisted and gotten the other major pirate factions to agree that they need to like remain as united as possible to be able to survive against Garlemald. The moment that the Garlean threat even smells like it might be wrapping up, there's going to be attempts, at her. Yeah, there's going to be shots at her. And, there's going to be similar stuff happening in Ul'dah, because that's when Nanamo wants to start, like stepping down and taking power away from the Monarchists and converting Ul'dah into some kind of republic. But that's not where we're at the moment. We're at the point where the bloody executioners have not been able to basically plunder Garlean vessels, because piracy is illegal in Limsa Lominsa against any vessels that are not Garlean. That was like the caveat. Merlwyb stepped up and was like, we need to be united. We need to be part of the Eorzean Alliance. You guys need to stop plundering like Ul'dah ships, because that looks bad. You have to direct it all towards the Garleans. But there's been basically no like Garlean traffic anywhere in southern Hydaelyn, because they're all busy fighting another war of succession and sorting their shit out like way up north. So no one's been able to get that traffic, and like the Kraken's arms have adjusted by increasing trade with the east now that the east has opened up more. The Sanguine Sirens surprisingly have also like chilled out a lot, which is weird. Seems like Captain Roswin is like ready to settle down and have kids at this point.
Right. That
Yeah.
sounds so fucking weird to hear from her. Like, what the fuck?
But then we have the Bloody Executioners. And the Bloody Executioners have always been like the largest pirate power in Limsa Lominsa. They were the major opponent to Merlwyb taking the Admiralty. Shortly after Merlwyb took the Admiralty, there was basically an assassination attempt against her by the Bloody Executioners, which ended up in... basically was the last time she was at the Astalicia, which is that ship that we see in 5.4, which is their like headquarters. She was invited over there to have a powwow with Hilfir in 1.0, and it resulted in all of her crew being killed, all of his crew being killed, them fighting like basically within an ilm of killing each other, at which point she won and was like, listen, bitch, you're mine, and this is how it's going to happen. And Hilfir's like, all right, okay, you've demonstrated to me, you kicked the shit out of me and like all of my men.
Daddy Merlwyb.
Yeah, basically, like you've demonstrated to me that you're fine, all right, you're the boss, cool. I'm getting too old for this shit anyway. And since then, we have not seen him. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have not seen Hilfir. We have not seen hide nor hair of him, nor even flashback of him since 1.0. We haven't even known if he's been alive or dead. We know that he's getting very old. He's been sick. And that as a result, you know, like things are a little bit shaky in the command structure of the Bloody Executioners, right?
Yes.
And if Hilfir loses the reins there, and they kind of go back to opposing Merlwyb and opposing the unification of Limsa and opposing the outlaw of piracy, then like Limsa ends up in a civil war. And that's what we're kind of staring down the barrel of here, right?
Oh yeah.
Is that I guess I kind of like bring it back. The Eorzeans are trying to patch things up with the beast tribes because they are anticipating a kind of like final push against Garlemald, and they need everything to be united.
Not only
right?
that, but Merlwyb is the one who specifically calls for it, which is continuing a thread that Y'shtola set in motion back in 2.2.
Yeah. Y'shtola like planted that seed there, and you know, like Varys also contributed quite heavily to that by pointing out the hypocrisy of Merlwyb and her treatment of the
I think
beast
he was
tribes.
the final straw that pushed her to this.
Yeah,
and she pretty much says that he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, she wants to do that. She wants to patch things up. They've fucked up treaties with the kobolds and with the Sahagin. They've been at war with them basically since they first landed on Vilbrant. And she wants to fix that, but the Bloody Executioners are trafficking crystals to the kobolds.
Right.
And they basically want the conflict to continue.
I thought they were stealing.
Sorry, no, they're stealing. They're stealing from the kobolds.
Because if they can't pirate, they're not pirates against the guard.
I misspoke.
Yeah. Which is still just as harmful
for
the sake of a treaty, because it's the same with the Eorzean Alliance. If they're going to form a treaty with the beast tribes, they can't be, stealing from them.
Yes, my apologies. I misspoke there. They're stealing crystals from the kobolds and then selling them on the cheap. And that's their kind of like way to make up the lost profits from the lack of action against the Garleans. That's no good. That's no bueno. Obviously, Merlwyb doesn't want that. They want this fighting to continue so they can continue to make money. Merlwyb confronts, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's like so not important and not interesting.
You mean the guy who she fucking slaps you're muted, Sly. The guy who she slaps the shit out of in that fight?
Yeah.
Sicard. There you go, Sicard. Yeah.
Sagat. Yeah.
Sicard.
Yeah. I just thought that was so funny where he's like, all right, I challenge you to a duel, and I'm just thinking like, what's running through Merlwyb's head? And it's
she's like fucking idiot.
This
just going through the motions at that point.
Because isn't the death penalty? Isn't that the same one she used against Hilfir?
No,
it was. Or is that the Armageddon?
So
whatever it's called.
She uses Annihilator against Sicard, and I can't help but what she's thinking is like,
yeah, right.
I'm not going to kill this guy with death penalty. This guy's not good enough for death penalty. death penalty was her father's pistol, And I mean, as she kind of like reiterated in this patch, for those of you who didn't know, her father was the captain of the League of Lost Bastards, which was working for the Sargans. They were basically, he'd become tempered by the Sargans. They were like supplying, them. And as soon as she found out, she killed her own father and everyone else that, was on board with him and took over the League of Lost Bastards. And then, became the first person to discover a safe course to the New World and charted, most of the New World, and then sailed back and fucking won the Trident and became Admiral. Yeah. But she decided that Sicard wasn't good enough for a death penalty, so she is Annihilator. I think she doesn't like unhorse a death penalty unless it's a death penalty,
Which she does eventually, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she didn't want to kill him. She wanted to. She would. She will. She's a pirate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But she's been on this path before of giving someone an option to not be, to not be shitty.
Mm-hmm.
She fucking.
And then Hilfir intervenes and he's like, "Hey yo, who woke me up from my 7-year nap? Like, the fuck is this? I thought I told you guys that we're behind Merlin." And I know a lot of people, I've been seeing like a lot of posts around that people are really concerned that like what should have been a really drawn out conflict in this sort of Lominsa arc was just kind of like wrapped up in one patch. But I don't think it's that simple because Hilfir is on the brink of death, and what they've done is they've demonstrated here that Lominsa is not united and that we might have like put out this one little spot fire, but there is going to be a really, really serious issue once the Gallian threat is dealt with. And this is something that, is definitely going to feed into to the next expansion at some point.
Yes. I think there's a lot that's said here about the new expansion that, because I think we're going to one of two places, and Limsa would be at the forefront of one of them, given that, as you've said, they have charted a course to the New World.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already
eventually.
Yeah.
If not next expansion, then like eventually, absolutely, 100%. As I was saying, like in Uldar, we've also got the issue where Nanamo is planning on stepping down as soon as the Gallian threat is dealt with, and the Monetarists are going to have a huge issue with that, and that is going to cause some internal conflict there. And Gridania, they're united, but they're supposed to be democratic. Everything is supposed to be resolved by like votes in the Seedseer Council, but Kani Senat has had complete executive power for the last several years as well because of the Gallians. And if there's any kind of issue with the transference of power or like step back to a more democratic system afterwards, then we could easily see like an expansion arc that is about a civil war.
Battle for Eorzeal.
Yeah, it's like absolutely conceivable.
We're just doing it in reverse of what World of Warcraft. They did Battle for Azeroth, then Shadowlands. We're doing Shadowbringers, then Battle for Eorzeal. We're just doing it backwards.
Yeah, I think it's certainly on the cards. But anyway, our contribution to this process is that as we've been speculating in curing the people that were, on the path to becoming Sin Eaters, we're like, hey, this isn't so different from tempering. Let's see if we can kind of use this as a solution, find a way around it. And Graha is like, oh, hey, like I've been sitting in this Allagan tower for centuries and, reading everything that they've got. Let's go to Azazlar and see if they come up with a solution.
I'm so glad to be back in Azazlar because it's such a fucking important place.
It was cool, wasn't it? Yeah.
That every time we go back,
cool.
I mean, we think of the history we've had with Azazlar between the Warring Triad, between the Ixals, especially when we went back to Fractal Continuum Hard Mode, which was a great payoff to the Ixal Beast Tribe quests at the end of the day. And now we have someone who's an actual expert in the matter. And
he was already an expert before.
He was an expert before. Now he's on a whole nother plane of he's had way too much time to get used to this kind of shit. And I love going back to Azazlar. It's very important, and in the MSQ you go through it like island, final boss done. So
it turns out that Gallian, some Allagan scientists had basically like discovered a potential cure to tempering, and of course that was classified and buried, and he lost his job and died in obscurity. I wonder why. Like that would have been a problem.
Can we talk about the Allagan PowerPoints though, and how good they are? Jesus fucking Christ!
I was just thinking, man, that's a lot. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work for just like writing myself some notes,
Yeah, and then Tiamat's like, "What the fuck are they doing back?" Tiamat's like, "Just fucking go away! Come on! You're so loud."
But basically, we can assume that this guy discovered a cure to tempering, and Emmett was like, "We can't have that. We can't have that."
Yeah.
But basically, he explains to us like quite clearly how tempering works, which is really cool. Is that it is a really similar process. We know like with sin eaters, too much light in your body, your like soul's ether turns like towards the umbral pole, and it kind of like slows down, and you basically just like lose your mind.
Yeah, it essentially it's almost like a blood clot in a sense of ether, and it just all piles up, and then it explodes, and that's when you transform, essentially.
Yeah,
right.
That's a really interesting way of putting it, actually, as a blood clot, because it almost is kind of like having like an aneurysm, or a stroke or something. Yeah. Right. So it's a combination of that.
But switch to the point where like once you are physically like. They even said once you're like physically too far gone, it's just
you transform.
It's too far gone. Yeah, you're too far gone to even recover.
Yeah.
Whereas like even before those stages, you can still recover from it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like when you get to that stage, you've got Sin Eater, you've got Void Sense on the other end of the spectrum. It's similar, but not quite the same thing. And then of course we've seen it in tempering. The drowned, right? Like Captain Madison, for instance, is kind of the easiest.
I mean, they even show us a much more direct example. They, by name, call out Sephiroth's tiny minions as his followers.
Yeah, his little eggies.
Yeah.
They're
his followers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's doing a combination of things. One is that it's turning your anima, your mind, way over to the umbral pole, and secondly, it's changing your elemental aspects, basically to the aspects that the primal is associated with, that the primal is kind of like made up of. And that affects a physical transformation eventually, if it's done, enough times or to like a severe enough extent.
So I want to bring something up real quick to dive back into Eden. Eden being the first Sin Eater, it technically brought about the same things that tempering does without causing fanaticism to Eden, at the very least, it would seem. Or at least we would assume, because they just seem to be mindless creatures.
Well, it wasn't to Eden.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's interesting about it, is that we discovered how to reverse tempering via looking at people like Hollerich, and like, that's where the idea kind of really came into fruition. But he wasn't tempered to anyone, but the process still worked the same. So it's interesting to look at Void Sense and Sin Eaters as, they've got everything except for the fanaticism, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, Void Sense are a really tricky one.
Because they're astral, they're not umbral, so.
Presumably, right? Because they're caused by the flood of darkness. We know that darkness as a force pulls ether towards the astral pole, right? And it also makes sense that like Sin Eaters, they lose their minds, right? They're just mindless beasts, whereas Void Sense are intelligent.
Yes.
They have memories. They have at least the more intelligent ones,
yes,
right?
Sly?
Like
I
not
was
all
about
of
to
them.
say like one exception to the rule would be Valtteri.
Yeah, Valtteri was born a Sin Eater, so he's in a different boat. Yeah.
Yeah, Valtteri is an interesting one. So this complicates for us. It complicates Void Sense, and it complicates the Asians, right? Because we know that they're tempered by Zodiac, but we would think like the same kind of thing, right? Like, well, how could their minds be overpolarized to umbral when the power of Zodiac is darkness, and the power that the Ascians wield is all to do with darkness and this force that like in its very essence pulls ether towards the astral pole.
Yeah.
So we don't really know about that. I've seen a couple people throwing around speculations that perhaps kind of like how Eden can control ethereal polarity. Maybe if you have a primal that controls like astral, it can kind of take the astral ether like away from someone's mind and have it polarized that way. Like rather than putting umbral in, it's taking astral out. We don't really know.
Right.
But
it is, I think it is interesting because you'd assume that Diablos and Skothic and whatnot were once warriors of light given their standing.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So they just their intelligence is an interesting aspect of that.
It might be a quality of the echo,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say, but yeah, this gives us some big answers. It raises more questions, but it does give us some big answers. Basically, tempering is you switch someone's brain off by switching it to umbral, and then bombard it with ether of a certain element that you have unique control over, and therefore you can then like manipulate this person.
Mm-hmm. Give a command. I mean, that's Vothri was born a Sin Eater. He could control Sin Eaters. He didn't temper them, but he was like given this very specific power, in a sense. Just not a mindless beast because he was half person. He was still human. Yeah, but he was just. Yeah. They basically injected a light warden into a fetus.
Yeah, and in the same way, we see the Ascians constantly manipulating Voidsent, using Voidsent.
Exactly. So,
which kind of makes sense along these lines as well. But when we discover this and we're kind of like formulating a solution, a couple of different characters make the note that like dealing with one of these problems will make things worse.
Yes.
Right? Like if we keep them with that elemental aspecting but switch their minds back on, they're going to become more fanatic and they're going to become more powerful and more dangerous in general. Whereas on the other hand, man, this is tough.
If you de-aspect them without changing their mind, then they just lose all sense of everything.
Self.
Yeah, they have no identity anymore to anything.
Yeah. So we need to do both like at the exact same time in this really kind of like delicate balance. And in order to calculate that, it's going to take us years and years and years of experimenting and calculating and, all kinds of shit that we just really don't have time to do. So we build a supercomputer.
Yeah, and that supercomputer ends up pulling... Well, I mean, the supercomputer just pulls the thesis out of the thing. Because the thesis doesn't tell us how to do anything. It just purports that the Alligans found the same...
It's a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
We're skipping a point. We're skipping a point here. We use like one computer to basically work out the password. Yeah. It basically just goes through an Allagan dictionary, like inputting...
Which is a great scene, by the way. I'm like, Alice, if you say the password is password, I swear to God. And she said it, and I'm like, I fucking knew it.
And she said it.
I fucking knew it. And then the thing is just like one of the best moments. Offended. It's like, how dare you even think of being this stupid in front of royalty? And she's like,
didn't the note even say, how fucking dare you?
Yeah, that's what he says. He's like, you're in the presence of royalty. Don't keep being stupid.
Yeah.
Know your place, handmaiden.
Yeah, we get the password eventually. Freedom. That's right.
Harlock.
Which is kind of, it's kind of nice for Sid and his motto being freedom through technology. That made him happy that he was kind of like the natural inheritor of this stuff.
Every time this happens, it always comes back to, so it was that dude's soul over and over, right? It's the same, he's Owen, but like however many times over. Yeah.
No.
That's every time something like this happens, that's the natural like conclusion is it's gone through the life stream over and over, and now it's Sid.
I don't want that. I don't want that.
Oh man.
Yeah, but we get his thesis, and like as I just described, all this stuff about tempering and all that. And then we're like, okay, well, we need to experiment to find a solution. We're gonna set up a simulation, and we're just gonna like find all of the RAM that we can to make it go as fast as possible, and do like 10 years amount of work in like a couple of minutes.
And Nero's got to be a part of that. He's like, listen, these dumbasses couldn't do it without me. Come on.
Well, Nero and Sid are like, hey, so we heard that like we in an alternate reality like worked out how to do time travel. So this should be pretty easy.
Nero is like, well, that means I'm going to figure it out in this timeline.
Yeah.
And Sid's like, I don't need to do that.
Yeah. That was.
Sid's like, I did it. I'll take that I did it somewhere. I don't need to do it here. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Nero's like, I'm gonna go back and choke him with his own umbilical cord.
Sid's voice was different. It was the same voice actor, but because all the voices were being recorded remotely, they didn't have as much like direction as they normally do. It was all like done in like home studios and stuff. So you probably notice like the quality of the voices just in the recording is like a little bit varied. Some of them sound like a little bit, tinny. I think that this is just, that basically.
Yeah. Because he was last voiced when Alexander comes out of the water, I think. That was the last time I think he was voiced, was when he goes, that's a bleeding primal,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was the same voice actor apparently, but it's just been such
3.5. Yeah, that's true. With Omega.
It's just been such a long time that
it's been almost 4 years. Almost 4 years since they finally he gets to the call. They're like, hey, so it's been a while. Can you do this right now?
Yeah, it was definitely like that. So, we just have to chalk that down to 2020. I mean, the thing is, like, directing Sid's voice actor is really easy. You're just like, all right, we need you to do like a Ewan McGregor thing, but just like a little bit, just bring it like a little bit more Cockney, and that's it.
Acceptable.
But, yeah, we just let that one slide.
Killed to hear Nero, though.
We did.
I really would have killed to hear Nero.
No.
What do you mean? We do hear him. He speaks.
Yeah, he has a couple lines.
Yeah, he has a couple lines. They give you the storied elegance. The line from the trailer, yeah.
Yeah, he's very, oh my.
Yeah. And then when everything's falling apart and exploding, he's just like, all right. He just watches.
Like he only got 2 lines.
He got like 2 or 3 lines.
That's why I didn't remember it.
Yeah,
that's why I didn't remember it. I'm like, holy shit. Like, really? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Pretty much. But yeah, we work that out. The computer blows up, but not before the massively overpowered Grahatir, who now also has a photographic memory to add to, his list of bullshit, is just like, yeah, no, I saw the formula for like 1 second and I've memorized it.
How long was he stuck in the fucking crystal tower where he had nothing else to do but remember books?
That doesn't make you good at staring at things and photographically memorize. He had time to digest
being stuck in the fucking crystal tower.
If he had 5 minutes in the crystal tower and he had to do it, I'd understand more. But here he's like, I've got 5 seconds. I memorized it.
If his brain was still attached to the crystal tower, then I would kind of understand it. But no, Kroemgarr is so overpowered. It's ridiculous.
Sly. He had time to sit there. He was just like, I'll read this. I'll read 1 page a minute because I've got all the fucking time in the world right now. He's not like pick up new book, pick up new book. He's not. It's just like
y'all some bitches. Kroemgarr is the fucking man. Like what? Like really? He's had nothing but time. Nothing to do but fucking read.
Listen, he was born. This has nothing to do with how much time he had. He was born this way, and we're just finding out.
Okay. All right. Sure.
So the problem here is memory transference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is to be able to like restore their memories, bring back their memories, that we're not just like reanimating them as a lifeless husk. Okay. And we speculate that maybe we can use the Porksies to do that. I got a couple of lines here from Y'shtola that I think we can perhaps ruminate on. She says, so this magic, adapted from memory transference, would be used to purge the subject of their fanatical faith, basically removing the memories, kind of like what Mitron was doing with Logriff, removing the memories that they have developed since they were tempered, and restoring like their memory back to an earlier state. While Angelo would be responsible for reanimating the ether of the soul. So bringing it back from umbral, bringing it, center from that ethereal aspect, while we, do the memory stuff. And then she says, yet I wonder the practicalities. If one were to reanimate the soul first, it would only serve to exacerbate the tempering, as we already mentioned. Conversely, a stagnant soul would not respond to the effects of the magic. So, to thread this delicate needle, we are going to have to go and consult with an expert on ethereal entities and such.
All hail Master Matoya.
Well, before we even get to Matoya, though, they tested out on a subject that's not all the way gone with Gabu, because he still has. He's not in that fully fanatical state, so regressing his memories a little easier. He tells us that he's able to. He actually the whole time is like kind of in his own head, like holding out, in a sense, even though he couldn't in any way communicate that. And so once we find out with that, we know we're going to need an army of Porksies and way too much ether, essentially. But that's when we go to Gabu is Oliver Twists.
Right.
Gabu is Oliver Twists. It's so nice to see you. I'm so glad that you saved me.
Can I have some more?
Gabu is I love Gabu.
But you're right. We figured that it uses a massive amount of ether, even just to like reverse Gabu, who's not that far gone. And we're like, okay, we need a more efficient solution than this. We need some way to like automate this process in some way. So we decided to go and talk to Matoya, who's an expert on familiars.
Who, again, I'm reminded how much her and Beck-Kluk are alike. Like, you fucking... All right.
Exactly.
What do you want? Just tell me what you want. Although she really seems to take to Graha immediately. Probably because he's over respectful in a sense.
Probably because he's like at least as old as she is.
Yeah, she's like, another old timer here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Alphino's like, by the way, we did this horribly dumb thing. And then Y'shtola said Y'shtola took your name. And Y'shtola's like,
will you shut the fuck up?
Yeah. You know that scene in Final Fantasy 12 where Vaughn goes, "How old are you, Fran?" And everyone just looks at him like, "Fucking idiot." It was pretty much the same thing.
Damn it!
You know what? She's had it coming. Like, I was so happy for Alphino here. Like, everyone is always doing this to him.
Yeah, and he finally died. They're all like, "That's not cool, man." And he's like,
"Yeah."
What?
Like, I thought that's what we did.
Yeah, y'all fuckers are always ratting me out. What the fuck? Cryo won't stop making fun of me.
And then, of course, later on, Matoya's like, "Oh, shouldn't be a drop in the water for Master Matoya."
This the great sorceress Matoya.
Oh, jeez. So Matoya's like, "Well, y'all gotta check out my moldy old hole." And we're like, "Matoya, please."
She does call Matoya's relic a moldy old hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just like, "Matoya, please, come on, dude."
Oh man, I can't. I fucking can't.
She says those words. Their voice.
She does. She literally says. And then we go there and Alizé's like, "Man, the grass around this moldy old hole is really like overgrown. She could use a trim."
This all happens. It's not like literally it all happens.
Yeah, and she's like, "Listen, you gotta watch out. There's gonna be like cobwebs and like monsters taking up residence."
This whole conversation happens, Sly. Literally, the whole conversation happens.
Yeah.
Please stop. Please stop.
So, yeah, we bravely sally forth into Matoya's cavernous multi-hole.
That one was a bit much.
What is a cavern? It is cavernous. What do you want me to say? I'm just describing it.
Caverns don't have that many bookshelves.
Look, a hole doesn't do it justice. All right, that's what I'm saying. This is really, really cool because
That's
we
not
know
how you
that,
follow that up. You don't say that's really, really cool.
No, it is really cool.
Yeah, you don't follow
I
that
think it's
entire
great.
conversation up with that's really, really cool. You don't. That's not the sequence of events that we were
Why
looking
not?
for.
I think it's great.
I'm
I
sure
think it's
you
fantastic.
do. Okay.
Yeah, so we know that shortly after the colony was like first established in the Sly. Oh God, dude.
He's holding on,
We know-
barely.
We know that the Sharlians discovered all these massive caverns like underneath the hinterlands. And that is when they basically decided to build the anti-tower and kind of like establish it as like a permanent colony, right?
Yeah.
So these caverns are part of that and presumably link up at some point to the caverns which the anti-tower is kind of like built into. But one thing that I thought was really cool here was all of the like the rainbow lava. Y'shtola tells us is dissolved crystals. So it's a bunch of like ether crystals of different aspects that have all been like superheated and dissolved, and it's kind of like cerulean. Like cerulean's a really similar sort of thing. But it just means that there is like just this massive, massive, massive store of ether underneath Sharlian. Which what could possibly go wrong with that, right?
Nothing.
No, nothing at all.
Not a
But yeah, we build a giant porksy that can make other porksies.
Yeah.
Yeah. A mother
Basically,
porksy.
long story short.
Which, by the way, has some great attack names.
It does, yeah.
Tenderloin is the AoE. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Every time it just makes me hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because we've already established made of clay, and you see it in its clay form.
No. A pig's ass is actually pork.
No, this one was clay.
Pork. The attacks are called tenderloin. Like, fuck. What's wrong?
But yeah, we imbue it with the magic to be able to recreate these porksies that can go around and cure tempering, right?
Yeah.
Long story short. And then we happily go back to Limsa Lominsa and we deal with all the Sickard and Bloody Executioners and Hilfir stuff with the jewel and all that we've already described. And Merwib has come up with a plan to basically use herself as bait to get an audience with the high patriarch or whatever his name is of the Second Order. So one of like the top dogs in the kobold.
So for anyone who doesn't
hierarchy.
know, the number of your order is basically the ranking of your status. So there's only one order above this patriarch.
Mm-hmm. And they're probably, like Titan Eggies at this point.
Yeah. They're
Which is
probably
why we're dealing with
jailers.
Second Order. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, so we decide that we're going to use Merwib as bait. We're going to get an audience. We are going to reverse his tempering while Einzar uses some, back pocket Deus Ex Machina that he's been holding on to deal with the other kobolds without killing them. And
if only we had Mistbeard around, but at least he's got all this stuff that Mistbeard used to have.
Yeah, it's cool, Einzar knows a lot about Mistbeard.
Yeah, this guy knows a lot. We should ask him some questions. I'm sure he probably knows some things.
Yeah.
I also like that Hilfir, when he mentioned Mistbeard, like looked directly at Einzar, like
Einzar, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, we do that, and it kind of works. I don't know if there's that much more to say about it. We reverse the tempering. He's like, oh my god, what have I done? But, you know, like, you Lominsans, you still suck so bad. Like, you guys just suck so hard. And then Gabu is like, no, but Merlweb's good one. These people are good. And Merlweb's like, here's my gun, shoot me. Then let's get on with it.
It'd be funny if he shot up to, like, avoid hitting her, but then it, like, stalagmite or something just
drops on her head. Just caves the
fuck, I didn't mean to do that. Oh well, she offered. Yeah, well, you'll reverse tempering when pigs fly. Alice say. I've got some news for you. Yeah.
So
and we've
huge amount of
successfully
character
done it.
development
Yeah.
from Merlweb.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do it successfully. We agree to lend him more porksies so that he can start to reverse the tempering of the rest of the kobolds.
Yep. And now we have to repeat this for every other beast tribe.
Yeah, but you know, I'm sure we can delegate that to Aaron Vold and $4.
Which is why I think we'll see them again very soon.
It's one of the reasons why I was
The
seeing them
Primal
again very soon.
Extermination Squad.
Yeah, so do we need to... I mean, it's pretty much at this point, right, where Merlweb gets a call and is like, hey, look to your south real quick, will ya?
Let's look up. Oh.
Yeah, go over to the floating city and just, like, have a look. And then Merlweb's like, oh, well, that's clearly Garlean architecture. Yeah? Yeah, Merlweb? Really? Really?
Clearly. I mean, she's not
Really?
wrong. It is.
She really isn't.
I mean, it's super not, though.
I mean,
It's
it is,
really
but
not.
it's clearly
But
gone
it
through
is.
some phases here.
It's really not. It's really not.
The best is if you get fog during that scene, they're like, look, and they're like, okay.
Bitch, where? Where?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looked murky to me. It looked very, like, voidish.
Had that
but,
metal sheen
you know,
that gives it that Garlean flair, that metal sheen.
What metal
thing-
sheen?
I had really good
One thing
weather
about-
when I saw mine.
What the fuck are you talking
I had
about?
really good weather when I saw mine.
One thing
Okay.
about the towers. The tower in the locks, essentially. If you go out, like, I don't know if anybody tested this, but like when I saw it, it might have not have been the case for anybody else. When I saw it, I went out as close to the tower as possible, as close to the landing point as possible. And Alpha and OMG were there, and Alpha was staring at the tower. So I don't know if that was the case in any other area.
That is interesting.
I need a screenshot of that.
I think I got one.
It is interesting. But yeah, look, we see those and we hear that there's more of them around the place. Not just in the locks and Vilbran, but basically all over the world, as far away as Yanksha. So any assumptions that it was like a localized Eorzean phenomenon or if it had anything to do with Mark are, pretty much put to rest there. But then, while we're in the locks, while we're at Alamigo, we have old mate Fan Daniel show up with an interesting minion in tow.
Yeah.
Spilled the beans.
So called it, by the way. Not
You
the
did.
minion. The
You
minion I
did.
got wrong super hard. But the connection the minion has to everything, I got right.
Okay. Okay.
So when are we goons getting double jump? That's the question.
You've got
Like,
enough.
when are we
jumps.
getting double jumps?
You've got enough.
No.
You ain't got enough jumps.
No. Once we kill this, we're getting double jump, right?
Of
Right.
course.
I can't wait for
naturally.
so okay, let's do this in order before I start making jokes. So he shows up at the Royal Menagerie. Everyone is there, Smash style. And Everyone's here. And he basically just tells us that he just wants everyone to die. I mean, it seems like so we talk about how Elidibus is, how the Unsunder's immortality affected them. And it would appear that Fandaniel's immortality has affected him in a very different way, in that he just wants everything, including himself, to die.
And we don't have to take his word for that necessarily.
But I don't think he's lying at the same time.
I think what comes next, it doesn't really matter whether he's lying or not, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he says that he wants to recreate the final days. Says, to which end I've distributed a collection of rather ingenious devices or towers, which will in time give rise to the grandest of spectacles. And he describes Lunar Bahamut as the first beast.
Yeah.
I want to see if either of you have kind of worked this out, clued this together.
I think it's just so these towers are replicating the same things that through the creation magic. I think they're both channeling the creation magics of the Ascians and the same exact like humming sound, like the same sort of ringing that caused the final days, and it's subsequently causing the creation magics to run rampant. But more importantly, they look like they're tempering people to Garlemald, to almost, I don't know if it's to Xenos, but we see it tempered, somebody who was a scout to one of those towers, come back tempered later and say for the glory of Garlemald, specifically. So...
But to who?
Well, if they're trying to, if he's trying to make Xenos absorb Zodiark, it seems like almost the logical end conclusion that Xenos is the recipient of this. But the big there's a lot of questions, because there's a lot of logical points I can see people going to with this, and I don't, and ruling any of them out is almost difficult for me. I predicted that these towers were in some way calling about a lunar cry, that the moon being tied to Zodiark and these being tied to them was important to some degree. Getting Lunar Bahamut as a name kind of exemplifies my prediction, and to some degree it makes me feel a bit more confident about that. Almost pulling Zodiark, because Zodiark is pure creation, like he was made with creation magic, so pulling that to the surface of Eorzea and it essentially channeling infinitely is there's a whole lot of things that just strings that just draw together.
To bring it back to center a little bit, the final days in the pre-sundered world, where, as you say, the ancients are losing control of their creation magics.
Yeah.
And as a result, they were being compelled to create simulacrums of their own nightmares, their deepest fears and anxieties and terrors.
And Bahamut definitely represents Eorzea's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The first beast for Amarot, we fight as the first boss in the Amarot dungeon. And again, it's a representation of the fears and anxieties and terrors of,
and they really
whoever created it.
And well, the second one is funnier to me because they really don't like chickens.
Now we don't have creation magic,
right?
But we've got a bastardized form of creation magic that the Ascians gave to us and taught us how to do to meet their own ends, which is of course primal.
The Garleans have been sucking up Echo this whole time. They've been pulling that apart. So there's
and you're absolutely right that the epitome of the fears of people in Eorzea would look like Bahamut, with, for the Ishgardians, just a little bit of Nidhogg kind of twisted in there, which you can very clearly see in the design for Lunar Bahamut. So the fell beast, the terminus beast, whatever you want to call it, Lunar Bahamut is the first of presumably countless numbers of these for people all over the world. We might be able to, wonder what they could look like, what they could come out as, but basically, these towers kind of like as an epicenter, I guess, is kind of like collecting that data from people and, compelling them into a sort of, pre-conscious summoning ritual in some way. As for them as for the tempering, that's a bit of a tough one because I don't even know if it's necessarily true that the tower is doing that, right? That's like an important function of the tower, right? We know that they went there and only one came back and he was tempered. That could have been something that was at the tower.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And but what's interesting is that it specifically says for the glory of Garlemald, which still meets the idea because Alamegans lived under Garlean rule for so long.
Right.
Honestly, their fear would likely be Xenos, oddly enough. Xenos or Gaius would actually probably represent their fears. So it's something being summoned out of their fears that is Garlean and then tempering somebody.
Yeah, that's the thing is that people are thinking that all of the towers are going to be tempering people to Garlemald. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think they're all creating different kinds of beasts.
Right.
This one, I mean, it might be that they sort of temper on proximity to like prevent people from being able to get into the towers and destroy them. It could be that there is some entity there specifically that's doing that. We don't know. As for causing like this keening, this noise, I don't know if that is necessary because that's what caused the ancients to lose control of their creation magics. But I mean, there would be other ways to do it, right?
Yeah, but he wants to, I think he is Fandaniel's. The biggest question we have after all this is Fandaniel's not unsundered. He says so himself, the last of the unsundered. But what he also says is that he's different from them and from the people who are alive now. So you'd think that because he's sick of Elidibus's barking that these are memories of the original Fandaniel that have been similar to Logriff and Mitra like that. It almost seems to me like maybe the original Fandaniel had a little more to do with the end of days than maybe. But the problem is with that, Elidibus then would have had to have known that. So there's a lot of question marks about.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Look, so Fandaniel says the three of them were obsessed with restoring the one true world. As a sovereign individual, however, I never had much interest in such things. And I mean, there's a few different ways you can interpret that, but for me, the most obvious one is saying, I'm not tempered. Like, that's what they wanted to do. I don't have to do that. I'm a sovereign individual. I have my own free will. I'm not tempered to Zodiac. I have these powers, kind of like what we've been saying, right? Like opening the door for these new kinds of actions, these new kinds of villains.
Yeah.
I have these powers, but I can do whatever the fuck I want with them. And this is what I want to do with them. Either he's being sincere and he does want to just like, you know, he's just a perfect nihilist and he wants to destroy everything in himself, or he wants to compel a summoning of Zodiac and he's just using that like facade to sort of facilitate it. Right?
I think he wants Zodiac, but I don't think he wants it for the same reasons the Unsundered. I think he wants to give Xenos his what he wants because it means that Fandaniel subsequently will get what he wants.
Yeah, and we still think we're still moving in the direction of what Xenos is wanting is to do to Zodiac what he did to Shinryu, and to force us to kind of do a similar thing with Hydaelyn, and then have like this epic, like, you know, final battle against each other with the rest of the world burning behind us.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to that.
Yeah. So that's where we're going, you know. We think that like, okay, we've worked out how to reverse tempering, so we've dealt with the primal threat, and then Fandaniel's like, how about all of the primals and everything else that you guys are remotely afraid of, all at the same time?
I can't wait for Lunar Titan.
Yeah, I mean, in Final Fantasy IV, well, okay, first thing, in Final Fantasy IV, Lunar Bahamut is redundant, right? There's 3 iterations of Bahamut in Final Fantasy IV, and they're all on the Red Moon. All of them. So I don't think that there's necessarily a connection between this Lunar Bahamut and the Zodiac Moon. I'm sure they're going to find a way to tie that in. I'm kind of wondering if there isn't a connection between this one and the Lambs of Dalamud. You know, because we've got Fandaniel, the Telophoroi. That's it, right?
Yes.
Moose already worked this out. He was way ahead of the ball with this, as he usually is, and worked out that basically it's a kind of portmanteau for Bringers of the End, right? It's a doomsday cult, right? We already have a doomsday cult in Final Fantasy XIV in the Lambs of Dalamud. Those of you who don't know, they worshipped Dalamud in 1.x. as like a a sort of cleansing, god of destruction that was going to like destroy the world and everything unworthy upon it. Khuja's been saying like basically since 2.0 that he would love to like bring them back in somehow, have them relevant somehow. And it just seems kind of obvious that like if you're going to start making a doomsday cult, it's probably going to be pretty easy to get the dudes on board that are already like been rocking the doomsday cult, for the last 10 years, despite the fact that they watched Dalamud, be destroyed and hatch into Bahamut. They're still going along with it.
And to be clear,
and
they were not tempered by Bahamut. They were just a cult that
as far as we know, they were.
It's crazy.
Which is funny because if they have a lunar Bahamut, the sun, all of a sudden lambs of Dalamud, it almost it feeds right into it. So
So that was my first thought. The combination of that and the fact that Khuja has been saying for such a long time that he wants to bring him back in. That could be like, the first link in the chain, towards this, final days apocalypse scenario that Fandaniel wants. I think where we go from here is again like lots of entities like this just popping up all over the world. And to deal with that, we're going to need all hands on deck. And it's going to be an interesting
We need more hands than we have. Hey, Graha, we need that teleportation. We're going to need all the shards. We need all of the warriors, please. Like, we need them here, and we need them now, or it's fucked, all right? So get to it, Graha. Open that fucking tower up one more time and figure this shit out, because... Or just go to the moon.
Yeah. No, I don't want to go to the moon.
I can't wait to go to the moon.
Look, finding Zodiac on the moon as an arena, that's fine. Having it as a zone, no thank you.
Don't make me bring up 1.0 facts again.
You can bring up as many 1.0 facts as you like. I'm not buying it.
Did you know that Tanaka wanted Dalamud to be a zone originally?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yoshida knows that.
I mean, Dalamud's the red moon, right? The red moon in Final Fantasy IV was like a number of zones.
Yeah.
Like I say, 3 iterations of Bahamut and various other bosses and dungeons and the Lunarians, which are, obviously like inspired the Allergans. But that's gone, all right? The red moon was interesting. The one with the shit on it, that's gone. We've had enough moon stuff.
I can't wait to go to the moon. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be the Azus Law. It's okay. It'll just be the Azus Law. There's going to be a whole fucking Asian civilization on that moon.
To go there. I was doing my best not to go there.
There's going to be actual remnants of Amarot there, like more of them. There's going to be like some of them are on the first.
I'm just saying. All I want.
There's an Anitor there. Sly, you wanted Anitors. There's an Anitor on the moon.
It's been nearly 6 years. It has been nearly 6 years since like we started this show and we were talking about the moon, and he's been carrying the torch, man. I gotta give him props for that.
It's just obvious. I don't know why you guys don't see it. I don't know what you're laughing about.
That's pretty much the last thing we had to talk about, right? Okay, good. Thanks. All right.
Yeah, I mean, do we have anything that we want to speculate about with the towers and the final days and Lunar Bahamut and all that? Like I think we pretty much just have to sit and wait, but I think we're definitely like on the right track with it, right?
Yeah, we're on the verge of something.
I can't wait to see what Xenos playing the new job that we're getting.
Yeah, he's gonna go be a geomancer. He's gonna be a healer.
Yeah.
he's gonna find
in February the new trailer. Yeah. He's just gonna have a new fucking job.
He's gonna be throwing potion bottles at us.
Dude, I'm telling you, know what's gonna happen? That's why they introduced death penalty and annihilator, because he's gonna go take both of them.
No.
That's why they gave Merlwyb all those animations, those new animations, because Xenos is going to use them. I think
he's going to get a new sword. They might make it like on the nose and just straight up make it Masamune.
Maybe he'll take maybe he'll go take Scylla's old Deep Shadows.
I don't know how he's going to get that.
It's going to be
luck.
Masamune. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to be Masamune.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be Masamune. It's going to be so cheesy, and it'll be great.
He'll grab Gaius' hammer. There you go.
So my question is, do we think that we thwarted the final days before 6.0, or do we think that 6.0 is going to be about getting to Xenos and preventing the final days? Because I feel like this is so huge and so chaotic that like it's hard to imagine how we wrap it up in one patch.
I feel like we kind of had to deal with Fandaniel before we deal with Xenos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if 6.0 is Fandaniel, 6.3 would be Xenos.
That would make sense, right? Because like Fandaniel's kind of opened the box, right? And if we kill him, no one can close it, right? Xenos doesn't know how to close it. So maybe we destroy him next patch, but like the damage is already done. And we've got all these, terminus beasts getting around everywhere, and we've got Xenos just like, off the leash.
I like him teasing Xenos because he's not afraid of dying, really, because it's already started. And he's like, "Oh, I may have singed him a bit." And he goes, Did you touch my fucking warrior of light?
Did you touch my prey?
Did you touch my boyfriend?
Did you touch my prey?
It's like, do you want? He's like, are you trying to die or what's happening here? And his obsession, it never fails to entertain me, because we said that we wondered the same thing. We're like, it's not like he can do anything to us. Xenos would kill him, and then he does something, and Xenos is like, that's a bad idea, pal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fandaniel's comment about Xenos, I'm assuming referring to the Royal Menagerie conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The one who has it all.
Look, I know that we've got mixed feelings about Xenos being the major antagonist for yet another expansion, but it's not going to be Xenos like as we know him. He's definitely going to undergo some sort of transformation before 6.0.
We still haven't even seen Nerva. I feel like we have to run into Nerva.
Nerva's a bitch. Nerva's a bitch. Like, you kidding me? Like, okay, you heard like you heard Leon and Menenius talking about him. Well, that's like Leon and Menenius are like, hey, what about Nerva? And they're just like, you mean Titus's kid, that bitch? Nah. Like, he's not. The thing is, they all of the other Legatuses are like, oh shit, we've got our opportunity to like make our own thing now. We all know now that the Garlean Empire was this Asian project that is completely balked, and we can make something much, much better now on our own. Whereas Nerva is still up in Garlemald in that frozen shithole. Like, finally I can get the throne.
Oh god.
Well, okay.
No.
All right, Nerva's a bitch. All right,
Nerva's a
Yes.
bitch.
never mind.
Yeah, Noah's gonna show up like, come on. Noah Vangerbronth ain't having that shit. Not even a little. Dude, even Valens wouldn't put up with that shit. I mean, we already talked about that earlier. Valens would be like,
No.
That's funny. All right. Yeah, and Nerva, the thing is, Nerva's getting funding from Fandaniel is another thing that is worth remembering. Which makes sense because who cares who wants the throne? Xenos is physically sitting on it right now. So who gives a fuck who's bidding for the throne?
If your sugar daddy is Asahi Sass Brutus, I got news for you. He's a bitch. All right. That's no good.
I'm still not unconvinced that Asahi wasn't Fandaniel
dropping
the whole
all
time.
the fucking mics.
I'm still not
Dropping
unconvinced
all the mics.
that Asahi is it, because he's literally the same person still, but he's an Asian.
I think he was just the most obvious choice.
I'm still not entirely unconvinced. I don't care what they say. This is one of those situations. It's like in 7 Remake. I don't care what they said at the end. There's some shit going on that they know about that we don't see. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Asahi was part of his soul before the sun. Every time. They're two alike. They're just two alike, man. I like how we kind of also skimmed over, but going all the way back to Eden, that Emmett just abandoned Mitron.
Yeah, of course.
It's a tiny
Emmett doesn't
detail,
care.
but it was funny.
Yeah.
It was just Mitron's like, I'm sure Emmett will come, and Emmett's like,
Nah, too much work.
I gotta go. I mean, it is what Emmett would do, but it's still really fun. Emmett's like, oh my god, I can't wait to have the old world back. And he's like, yeah, I'm helping, right? And nah, you had your chance. We're gonna plan B on this one. All right. So, yeah. Just another funny detail. Other than that, yeah, without just speculating on the towers and where we're going, obviously that's always the big
Oh, by the
thing.
way, did you see the pics in Discord?
Yes, I did. Of Alpha and Omega staring at that. I'm not as surprised about that as maybe I should be. I just didn't think about it, I suppose. But I did say that if they abandon Alpha and Omega and we never see them pop up in new places we're going, I will be sorely disappointed. So that's good news for me.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, if February comes around and I hear at the beginning of the fucking 6-point trailer, well, I'm like, fuck. All right.
Well, you know, we shouldn't forget that Omega used creation magic. You know, like
He
Did-
used
did-
creation
did-
dimension.
yeah, but like he was doing, you know, through technology what the Asians were doing through magic.
Asians were doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So, you know,
he has
could
a
easily
familiarity
end up
to
being a
these
piece of the
towers.
puzzle further on.
Not to mention, they
maybe.
still haven't really let Omega go. I mean, between both the Tales of the Shadows with him in the alternate future, seeing, you know, the Alpha eventually die, and, you know, watching the generations of the engineers go by, and then in the redeemed future with Midgardsormr, or I guess that's still the same future, but at this point, you know, it's the attempted redemption of that future. Him still being there and off but present. My favorite thing still being Midgardsormr just laughing at him, just being like, oh yeah, let's fix it. Come on, let's fix this shit. Let's go. That was a good laugh. All right. Also, yeah, Midgardsormr has to play a role in this at some point, right? Midgardsormr is Ishgard's biggest fear, or was their biggest fear, other than Nidhogg, for a long time too. So a lunar Midgardsormr is not entirely out of the question when it comes to that.
Well, I mean, you got to remember as well that we, like everyone in Eorzea, witnessed the Battle of Silvertear Skies.
Yep.
You know, watching Midgardsormr and the Agrias go at it.
And that's the final thing that I brought up on my stream. We were told we were gonna fucking figure out more about Silvertear Lake in this expansion, and we have not. Other than the Crystal Tower being there and what it is on the first, we haven't figured out shit about Silvertear this expansion.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Is that these towers could be waking up Lavos or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We shall see.
But we were told like that we were really gonna find more out about Silvertear, and we have not yet.
We were
So-
told a lot of things.
Yeah, we're gonna be resolving Garlemald. We're gonna learn about Silvertear Lake, and it's all in 5.5. That was the part they left out.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, Garlemald's taking care of itself in one way or another.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, we were told, yeah, we got a lot to do in 5. 5.5 is gonna be hefty. If you thought this was a long State of the Realm, man, you are not.
5.5
It's going to be a meaty.
Pretty
Actually,
fucking
you know
long.
what? It probably
We're
won't be
gonna
as
need to
long.
take
Actually,
we're
no.
probably gonna need to take an intermission.
No,
in the
you know what?
middle of
I
5.5.
actually don't think our 5.5 spoiler cast is going to be as long. I really don't. You know,
Eh,
do you know why?
Probably not.
Because
Why?
Nier is going to take about 5 minutes.
And no Eden.
And there's no, and other than maybe a festival follow-up for Eden. Yeah. That won't take, that show is going to be about an hour shorter, automatically. So we may have spent more talking about Nier in this show than we'll talk about in that show.
Oh God, I hope so.
We have to also consider doing 2 spoiler casts for 0.5 because we may need to do one for part 1. We might not be able to afford waiting on that one.
yeah. That's fair.
You're right.
So thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out for this spoiler cast.
Oh, we'll have the fucking spoiler, the trailer spoiler cast for February very quickly. We'll have to talk about that trailer and every lore aspect of whatever they present there very quickly.
Yeah.
So with that, thanks for hanging out, everyone, for this almost 3.5 hour show that we've done.
Definitely one of the longest spoiler casts we've done, isn't it?
Yeah, much needed. I can't wait for the Final Fantasy 16 spoiler cast when that eventually happens.
I think we might have to do a separate podcast for that.
No, we've already set that in motion, as you know. With TBG
as well. I've called in my SMT spoiler cast when that happens. So yeah.
Hell yeah, buddy.
Yeah, he has. You have indeed. One day.
One day.
We'll see.
When we get another fucking trailer. Shit.
Yep. Good luck. Good luck on your SMT5 trailer. Good luck.
Yeah,
all right.
I know.
So with that, we're going to thank our sponsors one more time. Everyone can say goodbye. We'll do a short post show, and then I can eat this BLT that's been sitting in front of me for 2 hours. So
thank
you everyone for tuning in, and thank you to our sponsors. We mentioned them at the start of the show. We mentioned Steel Series, giveaway under every YouTube video, one pulled once a month, and the 12% discount code. We also mentioned Romancing Saga, which had an ad play over on YouTube at the start, so thank you to them. And of course, our sponsors over on Patreon. I did actually, I think, get a message from a sponsor, and it was somebody changing there we go, to Shadow Link. They wanted to change their sponsorship from Tonberry to Titan, so that's not going to be reflected in the text, but I will make sure I've made note of that, so I'm saying it out loud, so thank you to them for staying sponsored. Thank you to everyone over on Patreon who has supported for the past God knows how long after this crazy year that we've had. So again, if you ever see your name, if you need to change your name or anything like that, perfect example, just let me know and I'll make sure that I get that done. You know, at some point, didn't get it done before this show because it's been a crazy week. I made sure to mention it at the very least. Thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni as well. Have gone above and beyond. You guys have been awesome. So thank you to them. Thank you to everyone on that list, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Oh, there it is. You muted your mic for that one. That was really quiet.
No, I didn't. I'm just sneaky.
You're not, but okay. Just stop making that face. And with that, we can sign off. So Ethys, our shepherd to the lore, where can they find you at, good sir?
Look, you guys know where you can find me. You can find me Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. All the places. Ethys Asher, lots of Final Fantasy 14 lore content, a little bit of Final Fantasy 16 lore content as well, a little bit more coming down the pipeline. Yeah, that's about it. Got some exciting projects coming up, some that I can talk about soon and some that I won't be able to talk about so much, but I hope you guys enjoy them anyway. That's it for me. Thank you so much for having me again. It's wonderful to talk to you guys. I really appreciate it. So thank you. Thanks for the platform. What about you, Sly?
Hi. You can find me at twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox. You can find me on Twitter at Sly the Fox, doing a bunch of 5.4 stuff. Well, I wanted to kind of dip my feet into E11S tonight. Maybe not. I kind of want to cap before I go into E11, get my fucking chess piece. But, I'll probably do maps, then lore. And then, of course, tomorrow, SMT Saturday, doing more Nocturne hard type because I hate myself.
Yeah, you do.
And, yeah, I fucking do. And then, of course, Station WSOI. Speaking of which, it's a week until Krima. It's a week until Krima.
Oh, my goodness, it is too.
But there will be a free mini mix for the public tomorrow at 8 a.m. The Krima mini mix. So if you're feeling festive, you're feeling the Christmas spirit, definitely hop by the Patreon page, because again, all the mini mixes are free for everyone. You don't even have to be a patron. Just stop by and you can listen to all the mini mixes on our Patreon. And yeah, love to have you. And of course, Station WSLY tomorrow night.
There he goes. Normally I have to remember to shout it out. He got it this time.
Yeah, I did. I actually remembered.
Yeah.
Haps, what about you?
You can find my moldy old hole at Twitter, Twitch, Facebook,
God
YouTube.
damn it.
You can find that at all those locations. Mr. Happy 1227. There you go. Ethys, you're way too into it. I mean, I just read chat and said I'm gonna say that. So thanks. You can really thank them for it more than anyone else. Yeah, thank you for that. And couple things. One, we will have a State of the Realm next week, but it will be on Tuesday, and it will be Savage. We have confirmed Sophia and Keo from the World First Group, Thoughts Per Second, will be joining us to discuss this latest Savage tier, as they tend to come on the show often to do. Spoke to Keo today. He said it was his favorite tier since Midas, so to give you a little bit of a heads up.
Oh, damn.
From a healer perspective, he said it was his favorite tier since Midas. So that's going to be a fun show with some great outlooks going forward. So, and in case you didn't know, Mog Talk also did a show with TPS the same week that they managed to get their world first. So that is available on YouTube. So go find Frosty's Mog Talk if you want a little bit of a peek into their insights on the latest Savage tier. That's going to be on Tuesday. I don't know what time yet, Sly. I'll let you know if that's a noon show or a 4 p.m. show. Sophia said he's good for either or, but he's going to check his schedule and get back to me. So
I'm open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure. And then we're not sure what we're doing the week after that because of all the holidays. That may just be an off week. I want to give people time to actually enjoy the holidays. Not feel like they need to be on a podcast or anything like that after the crazy year that it's been. Not going to try to rope people into something if they're busy for this time of year. So, on that note, we're going to go into a short post show and then I can eat my sandwich. And then I've got work to do after that.
Make a sandwich.
Yes, you can make a sandwich. I can eat a sandwich. Ethys can be a sandwich.
There you go.
Yeah. Just get some
Okay.
moldy old bread.
I'll unpack that one in my own time, I think.
There you go. On that note, we will see you next week. Thanks for watching. Until then.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next week.